I don't mind you coming here, wasting all my time. Cause when you're standing oh so near, I kinda lose my mind. It's not the perfume that you wear, it's not the ribbons in your hair. I don't mind you coming here and wasting all my time. I don't mind you hanging out and talking in your sleep. Doesn't matter where you've been, as long as it was deep. Yeah, you always knew to wear it well, and you look so fancy, I can tell. I don't mind you hanging out and talking in your sleep. I guess you're just what I needed. Just what I needed. I needed someone to feed. I guess you're just what I needed. Just what I needed. I needed someone to please. I don't mind you coming here and wasting all my time. Cause when you're standing oh so near, I kinda lose my mind. Yeah, it's not the perfume that you wear, it's not the ribbons in your hair. I don't mind you coming here and wasting all my time. I guess you're just what I needed. Just what I needed. I needed someone to feed. I guess you're just what I needed. Just what I needed. I needed someone to please. I guess you're just what I needed. Just what I needed. I needed someone to feed. I guess you're just what I needed. Just what I needed. I needed someone to please. Yeah, yeah. So feed me. You're just what I needed. You're just what I needed. You're just what I needed. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And believe me, I'll get to the Motown. I just wanted to play a little something that let you know how I feel today. A rough week that I will not share with you all. And no, it had nothing to do with bollocks. Any questions about Magic Bollocks, I suggest that you aim them at me. And just for the record, I want to say I love Magic Bollocks. If there's any fault in a relationship that we have, whatever that relationship may entail, the fault lies with me. What a genuine guy. What a nice fella. I just sometimes go over the line, don't I? Anyone that knows me knows that's true. I'd only be lying if I said I didn't. Most of you here witnessed me going over that line. And no one deserves the kind of beratement that I gave. It doesn't matter if I gave it with a straight face and wasn't. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter. No one deserves it. And in the end, I don't think, I mean, Bollocks will be back, I'm sure, or back around to hang out. I'm sure of it. I mean, I am. I mean, he's a great guy. So I'm going to leave that at that. But today, before I play a little Motown and get ready for the boys to swing by, I'm just going to ask quickly for a sound check. Are the vocals okay? Is the music coming through okay? I look to Lord Quinn to answer that question. Just let me know, mate, if I need to go up on one, down on the other. I want to talk to you all about, I want to use my knowledge in divinity for a moment, philosophy and divinity. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the ideas, the concepts of justice and mercy. Okay? Of condemnation and justification. We could call it condemnation and justification, but let's stick with very secular terms here. Justice and mercy. First, let's deal with the uncomfortable one, the one that we all want, right? We all say we want it. I've gotten news today that Tonka Saw said there'll be no more morning kumite for the foreseeable future. I weep. Behold, alas, I mourn. I am cut to the quick. And behold, I bleed. I wish no one ill, and I will not dance the joy of Schadenfreude while I see an enemy or a counterpart, if you will, because whether Tonka Saw knows it or not, I'm not his enemy. I'm his counterpart. I will not rejoice and bring joy into my heart because Yvette Ferrarca is going to go down. They've got her on camera. She's mocked the court by being out and by getting PO bonds, restrictive bonds on people that say you can't come within 100 feet of me, finding out that she is attacking these people. It doesn't matter who you are. The system will chew that up and spit it out. Justice. Let's think about justice. What is justice? Well, in some countries, and I don't necessarily disagree, justice is 3 strikes and you're out. If you steal that third time, and it's not because you're hungry, you've taken some tourist's bag or you've ripped off the corner mark, whatever you've done, they cut your hand off. That's justice. In some countries, and even in this country, in some places, some states, if you take someone's life, your life will be forfeit you. You will no longer have the claim on your life that you have now. It will be taken from you. Not in the state I'm in, but in Ohio, they will take your life. This is justice. This is the thing that we all say we want. But it's not what we want. People, listen to me very carefully. It's not what we want. We may think that the sun shines on this dog's ass this day when we bask in the glory of an interlocker deposed, of a nemesis derided, of your antithesis dethroned. But the fact of the matter is the next day, these things could be us. So let's consider the other, the transverse of this coin, the other side of this reality of justice. And let's consider my friends, my beloved friends, my irreplaceable congregation. Let's consider mercy for a moment. What does the strong man do when he's been transgressed? When he's been struck by someone weaker than he, what does the strong man do? Strike back? No. He listens to many a wise teacher that came before Jesus Christ, whom I'll quote. But Sun Tzu said very similar words over 1,000 years before Jesus walked the earth. If your enemy is in front of you and you have a chance, be quick to agree with your enemy while you're in the way with them, or they will deliver you to the magistrate. The magistrate will deliver you to the jailer, and the jailer will cast you in prison. Mercy is what we want. We don't want justice, folks. We want justice measured out to other people. Do we want justice for ourselves? You know you as I know me. We can deny, we can hide, we can shelter ourselves behind the wall of our own construct that will allow us to not believe the vileness that dwells in the very heart of love. We want to think that what we hold high in our very soul as the pinnacle of peace and justice, all these things, is the reality. But justice brings a curse. Mercy, folks. Listen. If you desire mercy, if you in your life desire someone to forgive you, if you in your business dealings want a fair turn of business, give mercy. Don't be a fool. Of course, be as wise as a serpent, as harmless as a dove. Don't go out to destroy someone. Don't go out with the intent of ruining someone. But be merciful. Love mercy. Hold mercy close to you like a beautiful young woman. Never let her go. Tell yourself that today, I will show mercy on someone that I don't have to. That there would be no reason for me to reach the olive branch of truce out to this person. It wouldn't benefit me one bit. It wouldn't increase my stores one iota. It wouldn't do anything for my family. But this mercy I could show this unworthy person, maybe in your own mind, will be true mercy, because justice is what they deserve. Listen, always ask yourself, if you were in this position, would you want mercy, or would you cry pardon, beg for justice? It's completely up to you. So look, I'm going to get a tune together. Thank you so much for listening to my short spiel about justice and mercy. When confronted with two things, be they good, be they evil, always choose the thing, I implore you, that brings the most joy in life. And nothing in this life brings more joy than mercy. So anyway, I'm going to start with a little tune here. Everybody knows. Kick back, relax. The boys will be here before you know it. We'll get it down to a proper chin wag. Should last about an hour. Top of the hour. We got 45 minutes to cruise in to this most auspicious Jaw Jack. Thanks for being here, folks. Hope you like this tune as much as I do.
I was the first brother of five, doing whatever I had to do to survive. I'm not saying what I did was all right. Trying to break out of the ghetto was a day-to-day fight. Being down so long, getting up to the cross for mine. I knew there was a better way of life, and I was just trying to find. You don't know what you do until you put under pressure. Across 110th Street is a hell of a tester. Across 110th Street, pimps trying to catch a woman that's weak. Across 110th Street, pushers won't let the junkie go free. Across 110th Street, woman trying to catch a trick on the street. Across 110th Street, you can find it all in the street. I got one more thing I'd like to talk to you about right now. Hey, brother, there's a better way out. Snorting that coke, shooting that dope, man, you're copping out. Take my advice, it's either live or die. You got to be strong if you want to survive. The family on the upper side of town will catch hell without a ghetto around. In every city you find the same thing going down. Harlem is the capital of every ghetto town. Let me sing it. Across 110th Street, just trying to catch a woman nursing me. Across 110th Street, wishes won't let Junkie go free. Oh, across 110th Street, I wanna try to catch a trick on the street. Ooh, baby, across 110th Street, you can find it all. In the street, yes you can. Oh, look around you, look around you, look around you, look around you. Yeah. Just got paid today, got me a pocket full of change. Said I just got paid today, got me a pocket full of change. If you feel like working hard all day, just step on my shoes and take my place. I was born my papa's son. When I hit the ground, I was on my road. Have one right hand and another behind. You can have yours, just give me mine. When the hound dog barks in my back of the night, stick my hand in my pocket and my planes on wide. Just got paid today, got me a pocket full of change. Say black sheep, black, do you got some war? Yes, I do, man, my back is full. It's the rule of people, and you know the rest, but it's way up here, what's second best.
And we should be joined. It probably won't be the top of the hour. We'll probably be joined very shortly by Crumple Point, and of course by my beloved, ever loving, ever constant co-host, the Common Sense Guy. And I don't know how we're going to get along without Bollocks. I don't know. We'll muddle through. Yeah. He's a busy guy, man. I mean, in the end, I think that's what everyone would say. He's a busy guy. Got a lot of shit to do. Difficult to. I mean, I just took a week off, and I didn't want to come on today, but I thought I should warm up for Friday. You know, I mean, it's something. This is. I always say it, but I feel like a jackass. So maybe I just shouldn't say it today. The fact of the matter is I enjoy what's happening right now. I enjoy having y'all here in my home with me, chilling out. So I guess we talked about justice and mercy. Why not talk about something else here? The reason that was on my mind so heavily today is there's a confirmation going on now. I don't think she's been confirmed. No, I'm looking right now for the my eyes are going. I swear on my life, my eyes are going to shit. Can't see a fucking thing anymore. I used to be able to see like an eagle out of my right eye. Had a little bit better than 20/20 vision. Not so much anymore. I had three gentlemen try to kick me to death for, well, they weren't kicking me for 15 minutes, but fighting me, and it was tough. It was a tough go. It really was. From what I remember of it, it was life and death. But it took a little something off of the sight thing for me. I thought something off the top there. So let's see. Oh, here it is. So, I was talking a little bit about justice and mercy, and this Gina Haspel. Gina Haspel. I remember her because I was following the whole enhanced interrogation thing pretty close in the 2000s, the early 2000s. I'm watching President Bush, ex-President Bush. I'm watching what he's doing, what he's talking about, these things, forced stress positions, terror scenarios. Yeah, let me give you all an idea of a terror scenario. You put somebody in a very small room. I mean, very small, closet size, can't lay down, maybe 3 foot by 3 foot, concrete block walls, steel door. You turn the lights off. You have cold water dump out of the ceiling onto the occupant. After the cold water, you have hot water, and I mean hot, not hot enough to scald the skin off you, but hot. After that, I don't know, drop some snakes in there. Don't have to be poisonous, just some snakes. The lights are off. Flash the lights on and the strobe. Brrr, they can see the snakes. Maybe throw some spiders up in there with them. Yes, these are things they do. And Hook, the remake of Peter Pan, it was called The Boo Box. The Boo Box. Yeah, throw them in the Boo Box. There's some fucking scorpions in there. I am vehemently against this. My beloved British viewers that are here with me now, that will come in the future and see this, you're against it. It was Great Britain that started the idea of when you take someone prisoner, you give them a cup of tea, a cigarette, and a steak, a soft bed. You don't have to like them. You don't have to like them, but you treat them as you would want to be treated, not as some scum throughout history have treated their prisoners of war. And we always blow things out of proportion. I don't want to act like this is gospel truth, but we think of the Bataan Death March. We think of the vicious guerrilla attacks on Peleliu and what happened to the prisoners of war there. None of them survived. They were tortured, scalped. No shit, scalped. We think of these things and we realize that, oh man, I'm not into this Gina Haspel. Sorry. I can almost, hey, what's up, Maz? What's up, Captain Copal? What's up, Mad Dodge? I think Mad Dodge production might be gone. I'm playing a little music in between. Good to see y'all here, though. Hail, Maz. Hail, Quinn. Hail, everyone that I love. But this Haspel woman, she doesn't make my grade. I'm sorry. I don't really want the nomination held up. I'm not for all that. It doesn't do anything for society. It doesn't do anything for anyone. It's just a bullshit fork in the road. There's nothing there. I'm sorry. I'm going to get the microphone a little close so I can be a little more intimate and you'll be able to hear me without, I don't want to blow my voice out. I've been gone a little bit. And I'm telling you folks, whether you believe it or not, just get a microphone and start talking. Do it for 25, 30 minutes straight. See how you feel. Might be all right. Might be fine with you. Do it like I was. Lean back, have it so you can hear your voice and you have to yell. I don't know, man. 15, 20 minutes, all I got. So where are we at? Gina Haspel. You know, she presided over Abu Ghraib. Yes, I'm aware of Zimbardo and the Stanford prison study. It was one of the first things I ever wrote a paper about in psychology. Love Zimbardo. What a genius. Yes, I'm aware of Milgram's study with the confirmation state. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's not coming to mind. If someone knows it, they can tell me. Where, you know, you keep shocking the person and the white lab coat feller just keeps telling you to do it. Now, she said, I watched today, and Gina Haspel kept saying, well, when I was told to do this, I thought it was legal. And the senator, to his credit, was saying, well, you say you have a moral compass. Turned out these things weren't legal. And if you have a moral compass and you are the commander, how could you allow this to be done? Here's the answer to that, folks. The CIA knew that Gina Haspel was new. This was 18. She even says it several times. 18 years ago. I don't think they'd pull this one over on this woman again. But they may not pull it over on, you know, Danker. On Arthur Danker. But Arthur Danker's been hung, hasn't he? There was many a Nazi, because that's what we always go to, right? That's the go-to thing. Well, the Nazis. Well, there's many a Nazi that did the rickety crickety air dance, you know, did the old my neck is popping air dance, regardless of their motivations, because they chose to do something. Now they can say orders and directives all they want. I'm saying, Mrs. Gina, how you doing? Couple point, I've seen you there. I'm just going to finish this idea and I'll welcome you into this conversation. Well, I would question, if we question, you know, Herr Weishaupt, if we question Goering and Himmler may be a bad example. Hitler may be a bad example, some of the ringleaders, but of course, who's the fat guy that parachuted into England there? He was the head of the Luftwaffe. Anyway, we can't, I mean, this guy was mad as a March hare. But orders and directives are not an excuse. If you are in a position where you believe that a person with a lab coat coming in and saying, okay, Crumple Point, they've answered this question wrong twice. We're at the 6th level. Give them the shock. And it's labeled warning. And the person saying, I have heart problems, please. And you're like, continue, Crumple Point. And if you're one of the people that go, well, in my humble opinion, you shouldn't be in a position of power. And if we are going to judge people that ever committed a felony in this country and say that they can't carry a firearm, if they ever committed any kind of felony, and we give people felonies for jaywalking in some circumstance. So if we're going to do that, then I would say, if one time you followed orders and directives that by any sensible person's measure would come down to torture, then you can't be the head of the CIA, the FBI, the NSA. I'm sorry, Mrs. Haspel. I guess I got to call you Acting Director Haspel at the moment. I'm sure you do a good job. I believe that you'd be loyal, but once you make people simulate homosexual acts and sick dogs on human beings and pile people up in big human piles of naked feces smeared human degradation, well, sorry, you actually lose my endorsement for any kind of office heretofore. And so that said, man, thank you for being here, Crumple Point. You're here at the request of Common Sense Guy. I guess I should take a second and let my voice chill now. I don't have to play any more music, so all you faggots can kiss my ass. There'll be more music tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow or whatever, some other day. But you heard what I was talking about, Crumple Point. If you have any 2 cents on that, if you even care, we're a long way away. Do you know who Gina Haspel is? Do you know her past? If not, would you ever vote for, Herr Himmler, as I said, if he turned his ways around and it was, 18 years after World War II?
I'm presuming we're talking about either Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo. From
Abu Ghraib. She was over Abu Ghraib.
Yeah, which was worse than Guantanamo, from what I understand. No, I wouldn't. She should be in prison. A nicer prison than the one she built, might I add, because society does have some standards. But it's thank you for having me on, and it's good to speak to you properly. And I don't think that following orders is any kind of excuse. I think if you have to have discretion. So if you take an oath of office of some kind as a soldier or a police officer, you have to uphold that office. But as you said, in the example of, what was it, Milgram, the psychologist, when he did his test of electroshock people, and you have to know as a human being where the line is in order to be able to carry out that office and say, no, this has gone too far. And
so if I get you right, you feel like that if you were my superior and you said, listen, we know they're going to blow up a school full of women and children and nuns, go pull that man's toenails out and have him tell me. And then, so you're saying that it would be my place to look at you and say, no, sir, I won't do that.
You present an interesting. See, the thing is, in the certain scenarios you can concoct like that one, I would pause for thought, but there's lots of, overwhelming evidence to suggest that torture doesn't yield results. However, if it yielded results, would I still support it? I honestly can't say whether I would or not, but given what I know about Abu Ghraib prison, I don't know this woman's name, but given what I know about that place, I wouldn't say that anybody who has ever worked there, aside from being like a grunt who manned the gate, would ever be eligible, in my opinion, to be voted for into office. And hello, Common Sense guy and congregation.
Hi all.
What up, Common Sense? Yeah, I got to say something very quickly because I want Common Sense. I have no idea what Common Sense is going to say. That's why I love him. I don't know if he'll agree with me or not. But the reason I made the scenario school, because listen, 2 things. We don't know if the school is going to be bombed. And the second thing, as you said, if you 2 men were here right now, Crumple Point and Common Sense guy, and you beat me down, not senseless. I still got my sense, but you beat me up really good with some damn blackjacks, man. Had me really wobbled up, tied me to a chair, began to, at the prescribed 15-degree angle, begin to waterboard me, pour water up my snout. I would tell you everything I thought my mother did in 5 minutes. And I would tell you things I thought you wanted, anything that I thought you wanted to know. So I would go back to the English way. The English way has been, for that I know, definitely since World War I. And I'm guessing it went back further than this. The English way is when you get a prisoner of war, you give him a cigarette, a cup of tea, and a fucking steak. A nice soft bed. As I said before, you don't have to like them. But some of the guards may even rib them and give them a little push on their way and be like, yes, scurvy dog, go enjoy your cigarette. You know what I mean? And of course, they shouldn't be punished for that, for showing disdain. But who would be the quicker to tell you if there was a school full of women and children and nuns, the man that you had terrorized and who is now sitting in a cell going, them fuckers broke me like a dog. They broke me like a fucking wild horse. I want to any way I could ever, because that's what's going through their mind. Believe it. Any way I could ever get back at these cocksuckers. If I could ever get them in that fucking chair, I drowned them. Who's going to tell you quicker? The one that you've treated kindly? I know I was dramatic on that, so I'll be quiet. And Common Sense, if you could take over for a couple minutes, I got to go let my dog in.
No, that's fine. I mean, it does actually depend on if the actual people knew what they were actually trying to admit to. So say, for instance, you have both people and both people actually knew what they were saying and could admit to something, then it would obviously be the person that would have the steak and the nice things. But if it was a case of you're asking somebody to say, oh, did you kill this person? 9 times out of 10, the person that is being tortured will admit it to stop the torture. Not because he did it or they did it, but because they want to stop the torture. The other person's not going to really. But the premise that you set up is correct. Killing them with kindness is the best antidote for almost anything. It's the same thing for if you're being bullied and things like that. As soon as you let them know that you're not bothered and you're nice to them, they wonder why you're being nice. They wonder why they're not getting to you. And generally, it throws them off. Because it's a case of being, I'm expecting somebody to be horrible to me, to cut my toenails off, to drown me, to electric shock me, but they're not. They're giving me a steak. Maybe they're not as bad as what I thought they were. Maybe they're okay. And then it's a case of you start hoping that other people can do things. Because the best thing about giving people stuff like cigarettes and food and decent food like that, if you take it away, not actually torturing them, and they then feel that they're being discriminated against and persecuted against. It's a falsehood, but it's a falsehood that you can implement and actually have on the person. So it depends. It can work very, very well.
Yeah, that's. I would agree with all that. And there's so many different aspects to these cases, but and I'm sure Ogre will give us a bit more context. But given what you said about, it's absolutely essential. You know, if the person knows what they're supposed to be saying. I've a degree of interest being from Scotland in the witch trials that occurred up here, and that was a classic example of what you're saying. Of these people admitted to anything and everything and made up stuff, and the authorities knew they were making it up. They went above and beyond the call of duty as far as confessions were concerned, just to make it stop. And you know, they got the result that they required. Now, if you have, you know, a terrorist or a war scenario, you know, you can't possibly give away what you're asking of them, because then they'll just repeat that back to you, and then you've not got any intelligence. And Andy McNabb, who writes, he's the I think it's Andy McNabb anyway. It's an ex-SAS guy who writes war novels, and he was captured by some terrorist group, and he said that aside from inflicting pain and making you talk shite to make them stop, even when used on him, as awful as it was, the torture was of no use. And the British way that Ogre described was also the German way in World War II. There was a story about a German psychiatrist who got into the military, who he was both quite interested in psychology and thought that it was wasteful the way they were treating the American POWs. And what he would do is exactly as Ogre described: good meal, nice bed. You know, they didn't have their freedom and their liberty, but they weren't in bad conditions. And he would use them as guinea pigs for psychological tricks, such as he would ask them a question so that he would know that what he was saying was wrong, and the Americans would contradict him and go, "No, that, of course, don't be so silly. This is what the actual answer is." And he would go, "Oh, I see. I had no idea," and then write down what they'd said, and they wouldn't even know they were being interrogated.
Yeah.
It's funny, that was put into a book by Stephen King called Apt Pupil, and I even used his name because I couldn't think of any Nazis, so I used a fictitious Nazi. But Arthur Danker, when he was in control of a concentration camp, he would, when he wanted to find out who was hoarding tobacco, or who was hoarding some gold there up their anus or wherever they had it, he would bring them in, and these people were starving to death. And when they came in to see the commandant, they thought they were going to be in serious trouble. But he would have a pot of lamb stew bubbling there in his office. And they would talk. And when they were done talking, he would just give them some stew, no matter what they said, and turn them loose. The next day when they came back, they would spill their fucking guts. They were like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going back to get some lamb stew. And he didn't beat me or nothing." He would tell everything that he wanted them to tell him. Anyway, and that's a very effective thing. I did not know. It's just funny that you said that. It must be true, because I know Stephen King is a stickler, or his at least his editors are sticklers for keeping things in the fiction that is actually true. So that's something I wouldn't have credited to Germans, probably because I'm Jewish and hate the fucking crowds. But Oh, anyway. Yeah, I think I cut off common sense. I don't know. It was just interesting.
No, I mean, I've pretty much agreed with everybody's premise on this. It is a case of if you want somebody to admit to something, then torture the shit out of them because they'll almost do anything that you want to do. If you want somebody to tell you the truth to gauge reliable information, kill them with kindness. Make them your friend.
Man, I hate to do it, but I keep that couple points here, so I have to go back to the mythos of society of the modern age. And there was also a movie called Traffic. And the commandant on the Mexican side, they got this Frankie Flores was the character's name. They got him there, and he had already been beaten, tortured. And the first thing when he came into the commandant's room, he was like, he was speaking in Spanish, but he said, "Who is in charge here? Who is responsible for this man's beating?" To make a long story short, by the end of it, he's petting Frankie Flores's head. And he's saying, Frankie. And he's eating a big meal in front of him. He's already poured him a couple glasses of wine in the interim. And he's like, Frankie, we're friends here. I've saved you. I need you to tell me the names of the people that killed my captains and where they're going to be. Not today, but tomorrow where they'll be. And Frankie, of course, writes it down. And who wouldn't? I mean, I would, if I was being tortured, chances are I would tell the torturers everything I thought they wanted to hear that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Because I would hate them.
Yeah, really, it depends as well on who you're interrogating and why, and whether it's a war, whether there's some kind of insurgents. If it's a crime scenario, then it's almost invariably useless.
So I'm at the spot.
Scenario.
I'm in this tight spot, boys. In common sense, you know me. I'm still upset. You don't see any Trump button. I think I threw it in a drunken rage in my trash, and I probably would have pulled it out, but I threw the trash out before I did. That button's gone. Made in the USA. Got it. Anyway, it's gone because of the bombing in Syria.
Yeah.
Now he's appointing Gina Haspel, the horror, the person in charge of the horror at Abu Ghraib. Should I dislike Donald Trump or no? Should I ever support this woman? Should I say that it's been 18 years and maybe she wouldn't just follow orders and directives again?
See, it's a tough moral question because it's not a political question. It's more of a moralistic argument. It's a case of, are you going to do guilty by association by saying that Trump reappointing her or appointing her is a case of he agrees with her ideologies or premises that she would be able to do this or that? Or is it a case that you think that there is a form of redemption or a thought of people change that should be able to do different things? I personally do believe in, but I don't believe that she should have the opportunity to govern again, simply because she's had the opportunity and probably didn't listen to the way that the people wanted things to do and only took orders in a particular sense. And to me, as you well know, that's not a democracy, that's a dictatorship or an authoritarian government. But as for Trump, I don't know. I wouldn't want to tar people with the same brush just by guilty as association. Should he appoint her? Hell no, he shouldn't.
It makes me think of, it smacks of fucking George W. Bush, man. I'm sorry. People accuse me of being a Republican. I'm a libertarian, and so small government. So I usually side with the Republican because in this country, we have a basic two-party system. But I always think of GW saying, what, 4 stress positions? I stand in 4 stress positions 18 hours. I was in a fraternity and they hazed me. These people are criminals. Yeah, whatever you just said, go fuck yourself. Let the CIA have you. You think your fraternity hazed you? Let the fucking CIA spooks get a hold of you and have a month that will seem to you like a lifetime. And then talk. But I don't dig it. It feels to me like I voted for the change and I appreciate that common sense. I'm going to take one thing away from what you said. I can't just say because he nominated her. Shouldn't he know something about her? And now that this has come up and it's being questioned, knowing that she was in charge of this thing that is a stain on our fucking country, worse than Scotland with Dankula, with all respect to Danks, whatever. I know that's horrible, it's horrific. It's nothing like having a place where you systematically torture the fuck out of human beings. There's nothing that could compare to that. So anyway,
I could be wrong, but I think Abu Ghraib was actually a British prison. I know the British used it if it wasn't British.
There was some people from Fallujah there, and y'all had a rough time in Fallujah, if I'm remembering the name of the town right. We actually sent the Marines in to help you. In fact, it was Mad Dog Mattis that ended up, because, again, the English people are, to me, in my mind, the Britons in general, they want to win, and they will win, but they don't like the idea of turning heavy artillery on a town where there may still be civilians. And Mattis didn't have any compunctions about that.
Yeah. Well, you've both hit on perhaps the solution to this, in that common sense says that it's a very, nebulous issue because we don't know the who, what, when, and why of it all, which is true. And you're coming at it from the libertarian point of view, which would be doing what's best for yourself first is what's best for the group. So in a voting scenario or a public office scenario, you just break it down into the small bite-size digestible chunks. And to me, that is, okay, I don't know this woman's situation or what she did. So the best thing we can do as, president or voters or whatever is just simply say, what am I comfortable with? And the answer to that is, well, I am not comfortable with the risk that this person could have been complicit in all this, and so I would not want them in office. Whether it's the morally right thing or whether it wasn't her fault, it's, as you say, it's left a stain, and that stain is something I would not be comfortable with somebody holding high office having on their record. And so for that reason alone, even if it's a little bit unfair on her, maybe she did nothing wrong, but that stain is too much and she should not be allowed in, for me personally. And that kind of thinking creates a precedent, which means this sort of torture and following orders to the letter, etc., becomes extremely unfashionable and extremely taboo, which ultimately is better for everyone. So you could approach it that way.
All right, boys, I got like 20 minutes. Give me 20 minutes before I'm going to let you have the last word on this, because I got one more topic I want to hit. And it was kind of cool because memes actually said Pavlov, and it was in my mind anyway. So have the last word, and then we'll move on to one more thing that kind of ties in, but don't. And then we'll get, I know you sent a couple stories over, Common Sense, and I won't lie, I would much rather cover the shit that goes on in your country because we're so fucked up over here.
I would just like to, as weird as it sounds, I would like to compare Hillary Clinton to this woman. Though we say, oh, it's a stain, and maybe she may have done this, she may have not have done this, we blame Hillary Clinton from Benghazi for a particular reason. We blame Hillary Clinton for stuff that's happened in Libya for a particular reason. Those are the reasons. Though we can't actually prove the fact that it was her and everything else like that, just to in the court, prove it to ourselves with abstract points and enough evidence to be able to do it. But she was in charge, so we blame her. So if she was in charge, this woman that's now in going back into office, and she was in charge of this, then by definition she's in charge.
Yes,
she is at fault. So she has to be held accountable. To me, on this point, as I said, I don't know why Donald Trump is doing this. If he wants to shoot himself in the fucking foot after doing so fucking well on North Korea and a couple of other bits and leaving the Iran deal and everything else like that, and then he wants to come out and go, well, you know that fuck up that George W. Bush and a couple of other people have done? I'm going to do the same thing by redoing this and bringing back people that were actually convicted and told that they were torturing people. I'm going to bring her back, because that's going to really help my fucking image with the libtards at this moment in time. That's really going to help my fucking image.
Yes. Oh, so that's good. That's good. And so I think I agree. I want to move on to one other thing here, as I said. I just want to give an opener here. I'm sure I'm not trying to talk down to anyone. I'm sure everyone is aware of what classical conditioning is, but let's talk about it for a second. In the case of Pavlov, Ivan Pavlov, the very famous gastroenterologist, he was not a psychologist. Remember that, please. Put that in a little bookmark in your head. But as he was gathering digestive juices from dogs with this very disgusting implement that they would hook onto the side of the dog's mouth, and when they would feed them, they would drool into that. It's really, if you watch the old films, it's disgusting. They would collect that drool, and they were looking at dog saliva and how it broke down food, believe it or not. But they noticed something happened. This is where we get into classical conditioning. Uncontrolled response, okay? Uncontrolled response. A dog salivating at the sight, smell, or basically thought of food. Salivation by stimulus, food. Uncontrolled response. Conditioned response. Dog hears bell. Bing, bing, bing. Now, the bell they rang was only to tell the assistants to get the food and push it out. That's what the bell was for. It wasn't for the dogs. But Pavlov noticed that when the bell rang, ding, 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 these dogs started salivating like a son of a bitch. Conditioned response, classical conditioning. You introduce a stimuli that's outside of the norm, whatever it may be. In this case, a ringing bell. What does a ringing bell have to do with food to a dog? Nothing, unless you condition it. So here's the point. We all up on, if just say yes if you're up on classical conditioning. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, because I could talk about this shit for hours and it would put everybody to fucking sleep. I think it's fascinating, but most people think it's just fodder for psycho nerds like myself. So when I consider, now I'm shifting to Albert Bandera now, folks. I'm shifting from Pavlov to Bandera. If you want me to talk about Albert Bandera, I will another day, not today with my mates here and we want to talk about something. I'm going to shift to this. This is the question. I'll give a short little aside after this, and I'd like y'all's input on this. Crumple Point and Common Sense Guy. Moving to Bandera, do I make any decisions? Do I watch Fox News because they spin news my way and I like Tucker Carlson's gun trying to shit out a hockey puck face that he puts on when he's talking to these people? Is it because of Sean Hannity is this ruthless quasi conspiracy theorist, almost a mainstream Alex Jones, if you will? Is it that, or being exposed to this particular side of the argument? Have they rung the bell long enough that I salivate when I hear that bell rung? Now, don't get me wrong, boys. I'm not trying to say dog whistle territory. Out of respect, we'll kick it to Crumple Point first. I want Common Sense to wrap it up. We're gonna have to get into the show proper after this. But is the classical conditioning an effect, or is it deeper? Is it Albert Bandera's theory that I don't even make decisions, that I want to salivate, therefore I look for the bell that causes that reaction?
In relation to the Bandura thing, him, Skinner, and Pavlov always fascinated me, and I found that Bandura's research was quite imperfect, shall we say. So I'll skip over that part and just answer the question straight away, which is, I think that's why philosophy and discussion like this is important, because if you're challenging your own ideas, then you're actively challenging that part of your brain that is looking for the bell, if you want to put it that way. Because otherwise you will just look for the bell, you will just salivate at the food all the time. You might find new and exciting ways to do that, you might be really good at it, but it's only by like challenging your own prejudices and your own confirmation bias that you can resist that part of you that just wants gratification all the time. And so it would depend on your reasons. I think that given that you, and I think this is true of Common Sense Guy as well, having listened to you both for a long time, given that you go to uncomfortable places and read sources of news that you disagree with very, very often, I don't think it matters that you enjoy Fox News, because it's not the only news you're getting. And so you challenge yourself consistently enough that I don't think you're just looking for confirmation bias.
Well, let's make it impersonal, though. Let's leave Common Sense Guy out of it, because we do see that he may have a different mindset. So if we could remove myself or comments or yourself from the equation and still let the principle stand. And you see where I'm going. I love what you said about Bandera. So you could look at it as a Skinner box scenario also, if you'd like, because, and I'd like to know later, or maybe even now, if you disagreed with Bandera because of what I said. Bandera was the one that, hypothesized that human beings make no choices. It's modeling. It's all about modeling. It's all about schemas in the brain and following a pattern, following a schema, which is a mental map. So in other words, I want light. I turn on a light. I didn't decide to turn on the light. Someone else turned on a light before me. I saw light, therefore, without making a choice. So anyway, I don't want to get too far off topic. So remove us and put Skinner in the mix if you'd like. Do we make decisions? We in general, not we truth seekers such as yourself, common sense guy, or myself, I say humbly, but do we as humanity make decisions, or do we look for that box, if you will, that will give us the kernel that we desire, and that causes us to turn and peck?
Human beings absolutely are capable of making decisions. Absolutely. Do they all the time? No. Is it a mix of both? Yes. But human beings are absolutely capable of rational decision making. That's why we discover completely new realms of art and science and all such things. And the conditioning, these men who studied conditioning were studying unconscious responses to things, and they were extrapolating that without evidence a lot of the time to conscious decision making processes. And that's my issue with Bandura. He was taking studies of the unconscious and applying it to the conscious without doing, in my opinion, enough homework. And he was a pioneer, so of course he made mistakes. At least he started the discussion. But no, yes, humans are absolutely capable of decision making, in my opinion.
I find it funny that you say and Sindaro was taking it from the unconscious to the conscious. I would actually say that he was suggesting it was the reverse. The reason why I would say he's suggesting it's the reverse is because you have to assess first, so that makes it a conscious decision, to then subconsciously link that with then food. So when you hear it, your subconscious then picks up the food. So from his little bit of research, he's actually saying you do make a decision because you're picking up on the bell, and then you want to link that bell with your subconscious to be able to produce saliva to get ready to eat, because your subconscious interlinks that conscious decision of recognizing that bell to actually be able to decide what you're doing. So in his own kind of ass.
No, that's a great point. As a matter of fact, I don't, look, we're just men coming together here with ideas. Listen to what he said, Crumple, and think about that. He is, in my opinion, correct. What happened with Bandera is he applied the subconscious. What he is talking, again, I'll go back to the light switch analogy. When you make no decision, he's basically saying that we are all animal minded, that our medulla oblongata is the be all end all of decision makers. And I would say, even though he is my favorite psychologist, because as you said, he was modern, he was cutting edge, he talked about stuff that even Skinner wasn't willing to talk about. In my opinion, our frontal lobes, where our reasoning takes place, our frontal cortex, our prefrontal lobes, that's where we really make decisions. And if we take away, I don't want to just tie it back into what we talked about to begin with, but it does. If we take away the ability for a human being to assess the situation and then make a logical, reasonable decision based on the situation notwithstanding the opinion of superiors, commandants, commanders, or anything else of the sort, i.e., this woman, Haskell, should never have allowed the systematic torture and sexual humiliation of prisoners of war. And since she did that, I am forced to say, whether I like Bandera, whether I agree with this, I'm forced to say that she made a decision. And that once you are shown to make those kind of, Lord knows I've done it. Talked about a few other things that I won't bring up today, but Lord knows I've done. Everyone in life, you, I, everyone here, we've all done things that were irrevocable. that when once they were the horse was out of the barn, it could not be put back in. You understand? The barn's on fire, the horse is out. Don't put it back in. So that said, we have, in my opinion, and I don't know if you're ready, Common Sense. I want to wrap this up pretty quick and get out of the psychobabble and into some cool stories. You did send me. I've just barely, man. I worked my nuts off today to be. You can see the red getting on my face. I'm getting some sun to be able to be here today. In fact, I'm probably going to take off the majority of the rest of the day. I have one other thing I have to do, but man, you know, a guy can only do so much. So without blowing everything that we talked about away, we are free moral agents. I guess I'll put it that way. And please continue to look. I hope to work more on the Liberal Britain Party with Common Sense Guy. And I hope that we can put forth a lot of our ideas, a lot of our philosophy, a lot of our the way that we think the interworkings, the guts of society should mesh, you know, how we think them gears should grind. But it might be an end to that. I don't know. Hopefully I babbled enough to get you on something else. Because, boys, let's face it, with what just happened, I could hear it too. We could talk about this stuff probably the entire show. But unfortunately, as I wish that the three of us were, I don't know, you know, very wealthy Grecian aristocrats sitting on the steps of the Parthenon, you know, we're not.
Definitely not.
We're not.
I've not got the legs for a toga.
Kill him, Lily. Kill him. Get him, Lily. No. She probably just got hit by a truck. Yes. So, you know, psychology is good, though. We need not. And I will say, before we move on, I got to say one thing. You kind of blew me away, Crumple Point. I know that Common Sense is studying psychology right now, but, you know, there's not too many people that even know who fuck Albert Bandera is, let alone have any clue about what he taught, what he learned, what he researched. But it is a neat thing. And I tell you what, it's you know, Razor Fist, yourself, the Switch Point, you kids, man. You know, you comic book kids, you're fucking so much more intelligent than I ever was. Maybe I should have read more comic books.
I'm just a magic 8-ball. I just shake in whatever the triangle says. I just repeat it.
So in other words, you agree with Bandera's research then?
Yeah.
He has no
Bandera
choice.
and Murphy's Law, and that's all there is to it.
Has no choice. So if I have to look back, it looks here like Fate Worse Than Death. Is that our first story or Common Sense?
Yeah, can be. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. This is coming out of, we'll abuse Crumple Point now that we've got him on psychology a little bit. We'll just shift gears so quickly. No segue, no nothing. Just a fucking cold drop and on to the story. Thank you, as always and usual, to Common Sense Guy I had some stories, but as I was putting them together, he sent me a couple, and this isn't going to be a terribly long show. As usual, they were better than mine. So we're going to go with his stories. Thank you, Common Sense.
This was actually sent to me from Crumple Point. Crumple Point actually did the lead work on this one. This is all his.
Well, mercy's sake. So here via Common Sense Guy, thank you, Crumple Point. Fate Worse Than Death. What are the fears surrounding human reanimation? And you see what was that movie? The Brain, right? Anyway, a la The Brain, just a brain in a jar. A Yale experiment which reanimated the brains of slaughtered pigs has prompted speculation that human trials could be next, renewing ethical concerns over the pursuit of immortality. As the quest for everlasting life appears to be stepping up a notch and in an alarming fashion, what are the key concerns raised by the pursuit? This is Nottingham Trent University ethics researcher Benjamin Curtis says, ending up as a disembodied brain might just be a living hell. Writing in the Conservation, he suggested that living without an actual contact with reality could be a fate worse than death. And this goes on, but we can imagine. Let me just I'll read two more paragraphs here. Some have argued that even with a fully functioning body, immortality would be tedious. with absolutely no contact with external reality, it might just be a living hell, Curtis wrote. In the Yale University experiments led by neuroscientist Nenad Seston, this person, the pigs did not regain consciousness, but Seston acknowledged that restoring awareness is a possibility and that the technique could work on humans, keeping the brain alive. And definitely, and I don't think I need to say more than that to get you boys to talk about that.
I've got a quick theory on the actually get the brain to form any sort of form of awakening or awareness. As far as I'm aware, that after the brain doesn't have any oxygen, the brain cells actually start to disintegrate and die and cannot actually be reproduced. So even if you're able to stimulate the brain with electronics to be able to make it work again, it would never be the same. The brain would be brain dead. The brain wouldn't work. The synapses wouldn't fire. It depends on how long you've actually had that out of context and out of air. To me, this is a place that reanimation, yeah, good idea, but you have to actually take into context what's actually happening with the brain. It's not the same as any other organ where you can take it out, and as long as it doesn't physically, then it will be fine to put it into another body. The brain in itself, as soon as it loses this air that's being given into it, the brain dies, the grey matter dies. As soon as the synapses stop firing, will they actually start up properly again? Would the chemistry be the same in the brain once it reignites again? Would it be the same person? Those are so many questions that can't be answered by just turning on a switch and turning on the power in the brain, so to speak, again. Simply because to be able to say that it is going to happen, apart from the fact that we know that if you have more than 5 minutes without air, you are almost clinically and going to be brain dead. I just don't see how that transfers. Yeah, I've finished if anybody wants to carry on.
Yeah, like I sent you this story because I know you guys like to discuss stuff from a philosophical point of view and current affairs and a bit of conspiracy from time to time. So I thought, this has all of that. So I threw it at you. And so if we're going from the purely practical point of view first, biologically, this is sloppy, and I don't think it's a very good experiment because, as you say, as soon as they lose oxygen, the enzymes and the synapses start to break down. So all these brains are essentially doing is conducting electricity. It's not like they're playing music and reading the brain activity where it should read, they're not doing anything like that. They're basically just saying, oh yeah, like it's on, it's passing electricity through the brain because they just said there's no consciousness, there's no motor functions or anything like that. So I think it's a little bit of an oversell as far as the practical side of it's concerned. And also let's just say it was successful, right? And they just hadn't re-established contact with the outside world yet. The thing with neuroplasticity is with a brain, if it's not getting environmental input, the neuroplasticity becomes a hindrance, and the neurons just break down. The neural pathways just melt, basically, and you become a vegetable. And so, as you say, there's the issue of, is the damage reparable? But equally, if it is reparable, if you then try and make it work, because it's got no stimulus, it will just melt anyway.
I'm going to say very quickly, have you gentlemen here on the panel ever worked really hard? I mean, like had a week of work where you got home, you did what you had to do. You maybe had 6 hours of sleep. You did that for 7 days, and then you finally got a day off. And in that day off, somewhere around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you have a couple pints, fall face down on your bed, and wake up the next day at 7 in the morning, 14 hours after you crashed, and remember nothing. And now, don't get me wrong, maybe you remember a dream, but let's just say remember nothing. Were you dead? What was going on then? What was in control? Look, once I'm gone, thank you, common sense, fucking thank you. Who here has had a nightmare? In fact, let's not even go there. let's not even go there. Who here has had a wonderful dream where they could jump 50 feet in the air at a bound and like soar from town to town that they've known and they're meeting friends? Everybody's had that dream, right? Where you're at like one constant party and you see people from your past and you're able to quasi fly. One of these great dreams.
The Xeno one's my favorite.
Okay, stay away from the volcanoes. But so the point being, you're not in control then. Listen, when my spirit has flown, don't fuck with my brain, you cocksuckers. Leave it the fuck alone. Let it die like it should. Just because there's, as you said, Crumble Point, with all respect, just because you know, maybe it's gone, but maybe the part that lets me dream and think is there. And as this says, that is the ultimate horror to me, would be trapped in my own subconscious.
If the subconscious could actually work, and you would be dreaming, you're going into a physiological, obviously, argument now. It's a case of, if the subconscious actually worked, then you would technically be able to imagine the force of being able to have interaction, to be able
Lucid
to have connection. Yes, you'd be able to have that form in your head. Yes, you'd be able to have that sort of ideas, and you'd be able to have contact awareness, be able to talk to people. In fact, you might even be able to study to it at a degree. Now, I'm not trying to say that you'd be able to go to a library and fucking learn about what's going on in the world and whatever, but you'd be able to go through the stores in your memory to a point.
Okay, everybody needs to watch the movie Vanilla Sky. It's not a flat-out endorsement for the movie or the actors in the movie, but everyone needs to watch that and realize that if this is the case, maybe one day you would go, it's a nightmare. And also common sense, how do we know it would be a lucid dream? As I said, sometimes we're in that dream where we're floating from party to party, from Christmas to Christmas. We see grandma. We've always had these wonderful euphoric dreams, but we've also all had these dreams where we're in some weird prison and we're running from some boogeyman. And
I completely agree. No, I completely agree. The thing is, even with lucid dreaming, it still comes to a place where the brain is going to rest. And even with using it as a subconscious to make it dream, you still have a conscious part in the dream when you're lucid dreaming to be able to understand and comprehend what's going on. And subconsciously, you're still making decisions. So you're still doing it that way. But from lucid dreaming, you can quite easily fall into nightmares. The point that I was making was that you could force the points of contact. You could have the illusion that you're still alive. Because if you're in a dream and you don't have any concept of waking up from the dream, how do you know what your reality is?
Well, then this is fucking immortality. Let's face it. What is life but what we sense, feel, touch, taste, smell, these things? So exactly. if I could live in this jar, I mean, you're presenting me with another reality that it could be the gateway to the pharaohs. It could be the fruit of the tree of life.
It could be anything that you've imagined or subconsciously thought of. It could be absolutely anything. But that's the point that I was trying to get to, because Crumple Point obviously made an extremely important point. The fact that if you don't have connections with people and you were just sitting in the jar, your brain wouldn't be able to comprehend what was going on, and it would actually cease to exist anyway. Your brain would shut itself down to interact with anything. There would be nothing that it would control. There'd be nothing that it would do. It would still not have any air, blah blah blah. But if it has the points of being able to have air go into it and then being able to have lucid dreaming, it has the illusion of being a real person again. Would that be able to make that what be the case as what Ogre's just said, as a case for immortality in that sense?
I'm going to tell you boys something. Every time I take powerful hallucinogenics, such as psilocybin mushrooms or LSD, lysergic acid, you know what I mean, I always get the same feeling. As soon as the cotton begins to form in the back of my throat and the walls start to kind of move a little bit, I get this overwhelming feeling, common sense. This is the real world. The fake world I'm leaving behind. So is it a possibility that this could be the gateway to another astral plane, another, I hate to throw in drugs, but let's face it, drugs if anybody's looked into Stone Monkey, theory. Drugs can be a key to unlock certain things. Could this be? I know I keep saying it. I want to hear from Crumple Point. Is this just a Batman plot, Crumple Point, or could this be the way that we do find the quote unquote astral plane, the disconnect between the fleshy, earthy parts and that thing in us that we all know exists?
I don't think so. I think that not in principle am I ruling it out, but because the human brain needs communication in order to function, as well as, so everything we've just discussed, all the problems remain. But then there's there's a couple things we've not.
Just 1 second. I don't want to cut you off. Just 1 second. If you're talking to somebody in a dream, are you not communicating and using your language synapses in your subconscious to actually form a conversation while you're dreaming?
To be fair,
No,
I think Crumple Point's talking about touch, taste, smell, the actual senses.
Yeah, that's basically it, because you're still, common sense is right. You're using those skills, but those skills, the conversation you're having, the brain on some level knows that it produced that conversation. The other thing is, as Ogre is pointing out, the sensation of hearing another person's voice, of sitting in another person's presence, etc. That's all essential. And in order to, I mean, this is why people who are like hermits or completely antisocial often have really weird personality tics, right? Because or deficits in, so they might have a really high IQ, but they might not be able to do tasks we might find relatively simple, because their brains have become skewed. Because
God
you need
save
that
me from the
social
truth of
interaction.
an unknown minister.
Yeah. So there's the social aspect of the communication between people. So if you've got your brain in a jar, unless you can hook those brains up to each other, there's not going to be a whole lot going on. It's just going to be this infinite feedback until, like I said at the outset, the brain pathways will become more and more simple until you're basically a vegetable again. And
Can I ask a quick question on your premise?
yeah, sure.
Say, for instance, obviously you're saying, for instance, that you're classifying the same idea as being a hermit within the jar. I'll accept that premise. I'm not going to attack that premise. But say, for instance, you have an Xbox or a PC or whatever, and you're talking to somebody on a headset, and then you start going into a 4, 5-way, 6-way chat or whatever. Does that then mean that you still lose your social cues? Because that's all that we're talking about here is social cues. Interact with people.
Why?
No, if I may,
I think you're onto something there. I think we're half agreeing, because even that would be enough. Like I'm saying, if we could even hook the brains up to each other, if they're going to remain in a jar, if we're not reanimating the whole body.
But we actually have something tangible we can look to and say that, here, let me put it this way. The Colorado State Maximum Security Prison, that's what it's called. It's a supermax. It's one of the worst places on earth. What they do is, there's a gentleman that's been there now for 18 years. He got caught stealing a TV. Now, that's not the first crime he committed, but because of 3 strikes, you're out, and he assaulted. He had one cuff on, and he swung, and the cuff hit the officer. Did hurt the officer, okay, but they have dangerous. Long story short, this is one gentleman I know of in this supermax, but you can look at all of them. Once in a while, these people throw shit out of their opening when they put food in it. They do anything they can do, common sense, to get a guard to touch them. It doesn't matter if that touch is roughing them to the ground, spraying them with mace, cuffing them, beating them up. It doesn't matter. So I would definitely say that there is a huge difference between what the brain can project, what the brain believes is happening, and what is actually happening. The worst form of torture, Joe Rogan participates in willingly every day, as far as I know. It's called a sensory deprivation chamber. If you stick someone, there was, I'll think of the name of the movie. It was in the late 70s, early 80s. I'll think of it and tell y'all. It was about sensory deprivation chambers. It will put you on the wildest trip of your life in about 15 minutes of not being able to touch, taste, see, or smell. Common sense. You start to go fucking bloody mad as a brush. Everyone.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. So yeah, carry on the conversation. Let's just I want to put that out there and say this. So to your benefit, to carry on the conversation, do you think what there is a connection made that would make the mind believe that these surreal interactions were physical interactions? Because we do know, as stated, that physical interactions are a necessity in human life.
No, I agree with you. I completely not agree with you. But the point that I was trying to make was that to have a mental relationship, as in you were able to perceive that you were having physical points and physical touches. And yes, I understand that the sensations of touch are actually in the fingers and then are transmitted through nerve endings to the brain, and then it is registered in the brain that way. If you could stimulate it that way, and stimulate it when you're dreaming and everything else like that, and why you can have physical conversations and some sort of VR system, would actually be absolutely fine. Because all it is stimulating the nerve endings that are in your brain to assume that your brain feels and thinks that you're being touched.
I'm gonna leave it to you, Crumble.
Yeah, like I was kind of happy with your first point of like even something as simple as, say, a brain that can only experience the universe through Discord, for instance. That would be enough of a social thing for it to bounce off of, to not completely degrade. But yeah,
Yes.
like Ogre's saying, there is the sense of if it was disembodied for long enough, or even a very short time, it would be hellish. There's also
in fact, it would make you go crazy.
Yeah,
it would make you definitely go crazy.
The other thing is, I think they might have missed in the experiment, and perhaps one of the biggest obstacles to reanimation is what they're finding more and more is the neurological systems are almost entirely dependent on the endocrine system to work. So actually, you're perfectly intact. Sorry?
The what system? Sorry, I missed it.
The endocrine system, so your hormones.
Most powerful
okay.
system in your body,
And
probably.
so if you fire up a brain and it's working perfectly well, it will do fuck all until you inject some, testosterone, some cortisol, some oxytocin. It will be completely useless until those things are present in it.
Yes.
And that's something I think they might have missed, because you could have a perfectly well working brain, and that's where the social interaction comes in, right? Because these social interactions produce these hormones.
Dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine, serotonin, all these things, and through that they give the brain a sense of something out with itself. Because as bad a nightmare as I may be having, it is nothing compared to the little hormone jolt of somebody arguing with me or shouting at me or giving me a hug. There's nothing the brain can really do to replicate that on its own. And
no, you're completely correct. I'm just going to quickly cut you off because it completely destroys the premise that I was creating anyway. Because if you don't have the chemicals in there to falsify the actual readings in the first place, then the brain can't even really comprehend what's going on, because there is no chemical balance that makes the brain think what's going on is going on. So the premise that I was actually even concocting has disintegrated.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
wouldn't say that common sense, but
I was basically the last thing I was going to say, until I handed back to you guys, was Ogre's situation of the prisoner. You've also got situations where sailors have been, if left long enough on their own, will start to hear voices and stuff, and they're not going crazy. As soon as they're back on dry land, the voices go away. It's just the brain needs social interaction, and if it doesn't get any, it invents some, and if it's left too long, then you go crazy. And so that's the biggest, I think, the biggest factor.
It's
that
fucking amazing. It's amazing what the brain can invent. I through circumstances that I'm not going to reveal now, have been in the situation to have time on my hands, not in prison, not in jail, but there was a time where I had 8 months on my hands. I agreed to a job. I'll leave it at that. But it was kind of a shining situation. And I know I keep bringing up Stephen King. He's my favorite author. I've read every one of his books, and he's written, I'd have to look, but I think it's upwards of 60. And so I found myself not only going into this situation with the book. I was young, 20 years old, celebrated my 21st birthday in this situation where I don't need, I can't, all I'm going to tell you is when there's no one around, it doesn't matter if, like myself, I humbly say, you can take this out of context. Oh, the ogre thinks he's no, I'm just going to say it. If you're like myself, an intellectual who is absolutely happy reading dry, old studies one after the other about the effect of motherless home on 20-year-old human beings in Seattle, Washington, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. If you're taken out of the realm of human contact, my saving grace is this. You mentioned, and I don't think you know me well enough to know that you are talking to a hermit. Crumple Point. This is my interaction with human beings, besides my wife. But that's my saving grace now. I've already come to grips with the fact that if something was to ever happen to my beloved wife, which I can't even fathom right now, I don't even want to talk or think about it. I don't want to entertain the idea. In my mind, to maintain sanity, she's immortal. Because if something happened to her, I would have to go find someone else. I wouldn't care if it was a gay relationship. I say that as a enthusiastically heterosexual man that's never even had a gay experience. But it wouldn't matter to me. I would settle for anything if I could only have the hermitish life that I've constructed around me with one human being added to the mix that allows me to hug, touch, kiss, speak to, be spoken unto. These things, listen, make no mistake. This is my final word on this thing because we got another story here. And then I don't know. If Common Sense, I'm looking to you too. I would like a final topic from you, Common Sense, that has nothing to do about news. Something cool like this, something psychological, something philosophical. But in the end, we can't be our own companions. In the very bottom end of the page, when our play is run, the final curtain is drawn, then we can be alone in the cold, dark ground that I so often speak of. When we're there, we're all equal, we're all alone, we're all the same. The seasons pass over our head, we don't know it. Eternity rolls by. There was William Shakespeare, he's gone. There was Sun Tzu, he's gone. There was George Washington, he was gone, he's gone. They're all gone. Who stands in Trafalgar Square? Lord Nelson's gone too. We all have that in common. So anyway, I hope that wasn't too much off the topic to keep you all rolling. And we'll roll on this and then go on to this last story.
I mean, we've talked about the physiological point. We've talked about the practical aspects of it. I suppose the main thing that we could actually really sort of half move on to is the fact of, okay, let's say that the practicality of it could work, that they're only going to reanimate your brain just so that they can transfer it into a new body, for instance. Just as a simple form of premise. Does that mean that you'd be exactly the same when you're being transferred? Does that mean that when you're being operated on, does that mean that you would lose your synapses and would lose everything? Or would you be able to keep yourself the way that you are? The actual practicality of actually being able to use something as reanimating or reanimation in the brain, what practical sense could it actually have, bar putting your brain in a jar?
Oh, I was going to let
because I can't see any.
I was going to let Crumple Boy have the last word. If I can add to that, though, I think about the idea of if you have a sailing ship made of wood and it's out on commission for 25 years, coming home every 5 years, but then returning to sea. And in the course of its duty, every single board on that ship has been replaced, but the old boards retained and every 5 years exchanged for the new that they'll need. And in the end of that 25-year commission, the old boards are then constructed to build the exact ship that sails. Which is the real ship and which is the reproduction? Are they both original? At what time are we us? Have I changed from my youth because every cell in my body, barring a few in the brain, are completely different than the ones I was born with? Am I the same ship?
No, you're not the same ship. Go on.
Just, I think this is because I know Ogre is a religious man, and I think that's part of the appeal of religion. Is
God, if you say that again, I'll never speak to you again, you cocksucking fucking Scotsman. Don't they have a law that says we can kill Scotsmen? Common sense. Don't ever call me religious again. I'm a deist and I love Jesus, but don't ever call me religious again unless you don't like me. Thank you.
I was going to say God-fearing, but I don't think you fear him. So it's,
that's much better. God-fearing would actually, and you'd have to know the terminology of the definition of fear, but I think you do. God-fearing would be perfect. Thank you.
I wanted to say that, but a lot of people take exception to that. So you're a God-fearing man, and I think that's the attraction for a lot of people of the idea of a soul is the fact that would be the one immutable thing that doesn't change, and that's what a lot of people get worried about when we talk about bringing people back from the dead and things like that. And yeah, like Ogre says, your vessel, your body, you replace the mop handle, then you replace the mop, and is it the same mop? Well, no, of course it's not, but you're still you. And I think that's the thing is the human beings are not a static thing. We're a sum of parts. And so, yeah, I guess it is a bit self-indulgent, the idea of reanimating somebody, but I don't think that's its only application. I think if you've got people with things like horrible cerebral conditions or people who have had strokes and things like that, perhaps this would be a method. People who are in comas, this would be a method of maybe bypassing or communicating with those people, aside from the whole reanimating the dead thing. If you could lift the brain out, put it in a jar, hook it up to a computer and go, what was the last thing you remember before you went unconscious, kind of thing. Things like that could happen. So there's lots of different uses beyond just prolonging your existence, I think.
I'll have to agree with you on the coma side of things. I do agree with you on that. It could be used for that. But as for instances of stroke and unfortunately other mental debilitating diseases or conditions, as we've already alluded to on the premises that we've already come up with, once the brain is damaged, even though you are trying to reanimate it, bar being able to reproduce new cells and connect new synapses, once the brain's damaged, it's not going to be repaired, no matter how much you want it to be.
But I think we were getting on the right side of and we can go on this. So damaged or not, our brain is okay. We were talking about I think it was 3 to 4. Whoever said oxygen cut off, I think it was Common Sense guy. You start to get brain damage. Okay, we were talking about that, but we also know people in cold water have been dead for an hour and 45 minutes, revived, and no problem. There was a girl frozen to death. I want to say in Vermont, it may have been Maine, about 5-6 years ago, frozen to death in her front yard. They found her frozen solid. I mean, you can look into this. It's easy because I think there's only one recorded. They thawed her out and she was fine. Okay. The question would be this. Let's bar out. And I know that we're going to go on this. I've got one more story. We'll wrap it up with the missiles launched in Saudi capital. We'll wrap it up with that. Okay. But this is important. This is philosophical. This is from a God-fearing man. And I think to atheists, it doesn't really matter what we are. In the end, if everything was taken out that we've talked about, immortality, boys, would you want it?
No. I would never want to. I would never want to be immortal, simply because everything that you would know and everything that you would understand would always be changing, would always be constantly evolving. We think about things, how angry we get from when we move, how stressful everything is. It depends as well. If you're the only one that's able to have an immortality in your family and friends, then you're going to lose everybody. And every time you make new connections, you're going to lose everybody. But even in the case of they all have immortality as well, you would never stay with the same friends for your length of immortality either, because you would always constantly change. You'd always constantly be different. Nothing would ever stay the same. And some people go, oh, but that's a good thing. It is, but that everything that you ever work for, everything you ever build, you know is going to change, and you know that you're not going to be able to keep it, or you don't want to keep it. You would lose the attraction of living. You would lose the attraction of trying to be somebody or trying to be happy, or even the actual ideas of being with somebody in general. The idea of immortality scares me to a fact, because you can't actually. The fact that we are mortal, that makes us want to be something, to make us leave things for our children, or to do something so we can look after ourselves now, to take that holiday next week, to be able to make sure we get that car because we might not get it next week. To me, it's the case of mortality makes us who we are, because we have to decide what we're doing quicker, rather than sitting on our ass for 2 years before we decide that we're going to go and get a fucking coffee or something like that, or whatever. I'm being facetious, but you understand the premise.
Crumple Point, would you want to be immortal? That was a great explanation too. I expect the same from you, Crumple. Would you want to be, and if so, why? And if not, why?
Well, great answer from Common Sense. I do disagree for me personally, but I think it's a great answer. And with the caveat of allowing my missus to also be immortal, I would say absolutely, because there are just so many things I want to do. Like, I would need 200 years just to read half of the books I want to read before I even went out of the house. You know, like, there's so much that the planet has to offer, and I wouldn't see any reason. For me personally, I understand. That's what I mean. Is I understand Common Sense's answer for him, and it makes perfect sense. But for me, there's just so much I want to do that I would need, so long that immortality, give it to me. But I would need to have the missus with me. Otherwise, you can keep it.
Can I ask a question to what you say?
Yeah, you can, and he can answer it, and then I'm going to wrap it up this way. Go ahead.
Sure. Sorry. It's a case. To understand your point, that's the point that I was making to begin with. That if you could, you would still do everything for the first 200 years, for the first 500 years, for the first century, if you want. What happens after that when you've done everything? When nothing tastes the same? When every alcoholic drink you've done, where you've fucked everywhere?
Yes.
What happens after that?
I don't think there is an after
time.
I don't think there is an after
you don't
that,
think there
because
is
the world.
I would say this too. Let's do this just for the sake of me, and then carry on. Your old lady can't have what you're wanting. Common Sense Guy and I are your benevolent gens, and we only give one wish, and that one wish is you or your wife gets immortality. So you've now chosen, for the sake of argument, you. So do you not see the wisdom of what Common Sense Guy said? The rose loses its scent. The beautiful girl doesn't look attractive. The sonnet does not soothe.
Yeah, I absolutely understand that. That's what I mean. People's priorities are different, and for me, like, Common Sense had the answer in his own premise, which was, about the world changing so much and you not recognizing anything. And to me, that would be the thing that would keep it fresh all the time, because things can always be better. Whether it be technology, ideas, art, it can always be better. And so to be around and to be part of improving things constantly, I don't think you would ever get, or I wouldn't ever get bored. As for the missus, I guess, like you say, you'd have to ask her, because I think you were meaning she might not feel the same way, she might not want it, in which case I wouldn't want it either, I don't think. So yeah, that would be my answer. Is the very fact that the Earth would change so much so fast would be the attraction of it to me.
And it's getting close, folks. Midsummer's Night is getting close. Why do I care? Am I a member of the Bohemian Grove? No, I'm a Jew, and I'm quite wealthy, but I'm not a member of the Bohemian Grove, nor would I ever be, because they would steal away all my Jew silver. But my wife, my beloved one and only red-haired girl, it's her birthday, the 21st. And does everybody know what that means? I mean, Midsummer's Night. It's the one time of the year where day and night are equal. There's 12 and 12. Excuse me. Sorry. What am I saying? It's equal. It's the longest. Sorry. It's the longest day of the year with the shortest night. What am I saying? So since I fucked that up so bad, this is for my wife. I do quote this to her from time to time, and then we'll go on to our last story. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding, but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. And as I am an honest puck, if we have unearned luck, now to scrape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long, else the puck a liar call. So good night unto you all. Give me your hands, if we be friends, and Robin Goodman shall restore amends. Yeah, that's the end of our surreal talk. That's the end of our musings on what could be if the world was never ending in our own mind, and whether that had to do with senses or unreality. Now that I said that, memes of destruction has showed up. So now that, even though I give my quote, memes, if you have something else of an idea of, immortality, if you would want it or not, I would like to hear from you on that, and you alone. And then we'll go on into our final story from RT about the missiles launched at the Saudi capital. So what about it, memes? Do you have something to say?
Which version of immortality?
You alone. You will live forever if you so choose. Would that be something that you would choose? All things considered, you would not worry about broken arms, broken legs, severed limbs, because we all know that the idea of living forever could be horrible, because the chances that you would lose a limb in 10,000 years is 100%. So,
well, even if like, are we restricting aging? Are we talking about being?
You will not age.
Point?
Now it's okay. Good. So to hopefully put all your questions to bed, immortal as you are now, never changing and never dying, would you accept it?
Are we talking Highlander or?
Yes.
Because Highlander could still die.
But you don't need to, but you cannot die, and you don't need to take other people's lives. But Highlander.
No, you cannot die. I mean, in some ways that could be a curse. I mean, you're talking about a lot of things. It's like Crumple Point said, man. It's like, would it be cool to do all the things you've ever wanted to do in your life? Could there potentially be an infinite more? That's a potential. But even if we could, should we? And that comes down to it. And that gets to the point where you're really just playing God at that point. And if we're framing it in the argument and basically the previous discussion that we had about basically keeping the brain alive, transplanting and stuff like that, we're so fucking smart, man. It's just, we're pushing ourselves to the point where we are having serious ethical things pop up, and we need to have these discussions. And it's great that we're having this right here, right now. Do I think it would be cool? Sure. And the crazy thing is, we're probably, at least in theory, not that far away for some basic purposes of this. I say that as somebody that is continually a smoker, which is a horrible thing for me. But I don't know, man. I don't have an answer to that question.
That's good enough. I was going to say a couple other things, but I guess we'll leave off on that.
May I add a quick premise?
Yeah, you may, but I want to say one more thing. I think I'm going along the lines of not what common sense will say, because I'm not a brain reader, but a mind reader. But I think that I think that you're overlooking one thing, gentlemen. And by gentlemen, I mean Crumple Point and memes. That the things that you want to do, including all the books you want to read, Crumple Point, in eternity, I think that's the thing we don't grasp, would be minuscule. So my answer will and always be no. Let me grow old. Let the machine wear down. Let me look in the mirror one day, as I did this morning, and see an old man where once a handsome man stood. Let me see an older man. Let him get wrinkled. Let him lose his mind. let him fade away and be buried in the ground like all other before me. I would not want, and I think that it would be cause for madness.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The premise that I wanted to add, and if I may, I would like to add it to both of them, is if you're able to have children, obviously with your wife, Crumple Point, as you put is in the premise, and in general for you memes, for anybody that you meet, would it be a case of you wouldn't be able to have them immortal as well? Would you still want that?
Oh, dude, you just you hit the nail on the head, and that's where the reservations come in. Just because, I mean, I believe this was explained to Aragorn's lover in Lord of the Rings, in that would you care to marry the man that you love and watch him grow old and die, and then just see all your loved ones around you die? And that's, I don't know, that sounds like a fate worse than death.
Huzzah! What an excellent reference. Oh, I wasn't trying to derail it. That was an excellent reference. I mean, that's because that's the thing I think about. And I didn't consider that prose, but that sums it up. And that's what we put to Crumple Point: immortality, but you and you alone. I would say this: if we added your loved one only, it wouldn't make a difference, because after 975,000 years, you and your loved one would be done. You would look at each other and you would say, how can we cease? How can we cease being? This is the worst curse that ever was. Everything that we knew, the culture. I mean, think about the last 3,000 years. Now, I said 900 and some thousand. Think about the last 3,000 years. Go back to Greece in its heyday, 3,000 years ago, and then fast forward to now, and you lived through all that. Everything you knew, loved, imagined, wanted, desired would be dead and gone, even if your beloved other was with you. And I do think, in my own mind, I believe that it would drive a man crazy in way before 1,000 years, and you would be seeking ways to end the Groundhog Day that you found yourself in.
Well, the thing is, though, that is still an option. You know, that, you know, I didn't really, I took it as a kind of this ageless thing, but like a bullet would still kill you. So
no, well,
you know,
that's not what I meant, but that would be better. I would say that if that kind of immortality existed, I would choose it, because that would mean anytime I wanted, I could go bang, bye.
But then that's not immortality. But that's not immortality.
I agree.
That's not immortality then.
I agree. That would be not immortality. I was talking about immortality. You could put a gun to your fucking head and go bam, and you'd still be fine. You'd be fine.
You could spend all night like on just the immortality topic alone, but just to Ogre's point there about cultures and stuff changing, is I think that would be an ideal circumstance, because how many times have you thought, oh man, I would love to have lived just for a little while in ancient Greece, but not too long, you know, because they were all mental. Well, think about it backwards. You'd be able to do that, and then you would be seeing into the future as well, because you'd be around for it all. And I think people have this idea that being immortal would make them a god of some kind, like they would become king eventually. No, you know, you would just be yourself.
Well, no, Crumple. To bring back what you were just talking about ancient Greece and your references earlier, we all remember from that Xena episode, you need to eat the ambrosia to become a god.
Jeez, oh, please.
Exactly.
You got
But people seem to think that they would get to this stage where they'd be king of the world and then they'd run out of stuff to do. And it's like, well, no, you wouldn't have that kind of power. You would just be undying, and you would still have the limitations of a human being and of a human being's body. And so you would never run out of stuff to do, I don't think. And you would be able to basically time travel, you know, because you would be around.
Yeah, you know what, Crumple Point, you'll always be the guy that will see the glass half full. You obviously, because you know, maybe to a lesser degree, memes of destruction. But I'm going to tell y'all right now, humbly, as I believe the oldest man here, and due his deference as the elder, eternity would be a bitch that none of us here would be able to handle. That all of the flowery things we're talking about, I consider my time and solitude. And I would say that if you were a time traveler, if you were an immortal, you would stand in solitude eventually finding yourself at a nexus you didn't understand, at a crossroads you couldn't comprehend. And eventually you would look back at 5 million years. Let me put it that way. 5 million. For anybody that believes in the idea of change over time, 5 million years, you might be the only human being on a planet that was dominated by insects that have now grown to monstrous proportions.
Hey, don't take away my giant grasshopper. That's how I get around.
No, but
Yeah,
Edgar
also,
makes an extremely great point on that one. The process of evolution would make either the human race or the process in general completely different to what you would be now. So if you're not going to be able to change and you're just immortal and unchangeless and ageless and just the way that you are and can't die, then it's a case that everybody else around you is going to change. Some people are going to get a lot taller than you. Some people might get smaller. I don't know what the process of evolution would actually be, but things would change. People would change. You look at people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s now, most of them don't know how to use a computer. Point of people saying, oh, I'll be able to change with the times. You would have to make sure that you forced yourself to learn everything. And if you're immortal, we go, it's just a fad. I don't need to learn anything on that.
all right, boys, I got to stay rigid here. We got, I have 20 minutes left. I'll stay till 10 after. At 10 after the hour, I'm going to play 2 songs that I got to fuck off and do some shit that I don't really want to do. I won't even lie. But I've got to. I have to. I'm going to do this too. Some people will remember from Twitter, if they follow me on that god-awful thing. I don't understand why anybody's there, but some people are. If they'll see that I said something about how does a man eat an elephant? And then I showed my garden that I broke with the rototiller you can see in the picture. And it's 420 square meters. It's 32 by 12, whatever it is. I did the math that day. I put it out. 420 square meters, which is cool to me because I like 420, not because it's Hitler's birthday, but because I'm a stoner. And so I do have to do a few things. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to discontinue this last story. There was missiles launched. This is how I want to end. All right. I don't know about Crumple Point. I have a feeling about memes, but I have no idea what the fuck this guy's memes is going to say from time to time. That's why I love him. I have no fucking clue. So I'm not even going to try to think what he's going to think or feel. And I have a feeling the way that Common Sense Guy will lean. But I'm going back to this. Is the bombing that's happening in Saudi Arabia right now Donald Trump's fault? Why on God's earth would a guy that sent out something to the effect of 50, 75 Twitters, I should say 50 or 75 twits, whatever they call them, tweets, that they should never have bombed Syria, that bomb is, I mean, you can look through it yourself. We did it here, Common Sense. Remember, we did it. The whole fucking thing, pulling up his tweets. And then he bombs them. Is whatever happens there now, as we said, now listen, I'm tying this in, folks. We said that this bitch, it was her fault in Abu Ghraib, because in the end, it was her responsibility that the upper echelon said to torture the bastards, and she did it because she thought it was legal. So that means me and Common Sense Guy can bend memes over while Crumple Point butt fucks him if we think it's legal. I would say that's bad no matter what. So is what happens now in the Middle East, and I know Common Sense, give me a little break. I'm trying to put this out in a very strong way because I'm a conversation. So know that I don't feel like it's all, but is what's happening in the Middle East after Trump decided to bomb Syria, which he said was a bad idea, is it his fault?
No, because the processes were already in place. The case of what Trump did was one of the last bits and pieces that happened. Everything else before that, for the last 7 years, is the reasons why it's fucked and why the Middle East is as fucked as it is at this moment in time. Trump added to it, and yes, he is definitely up for it, but Syria is Syria because of what's happened in the past, not for what Trump's done in the immediate past. Go ahead. One of you.
Oh, no, I get you. All right. So in that case, As far as it being President Trump's fault, sure, it's his fault. I mean, if he issued the orders, I mean, but to go back to what CSG was saying, he issued the orders. What was the underlying scenario at the time? If you're asking if it's his fault for launching bombs, sure, but he's accelerating an issue that's been boiling over for however many 20, 30, 40, 50 or so years since, I believe, the removal of the Shah in Iran. I mean, he's looking to get things done. He launched bombs in Syria that showed that he was willing to act. We may now have peace in North Korea. What he's trying to do now, he's trying to handle Iran. What's he doing? He's doing all the things that folks have warned about or saber rattled for so long, but nothing really ever happened aside from occasionally launching tomahawks. Hell, I remember when Bill Clinton was launching tomahawks into Iraq when Saddam was in charge during the 90s for years. That just seemed to be like every 3, 4, 5 months or so. He was just launching some tomahawks over there. I still remember when that shit happened. I mean, if you're saying is
Blowed up
the issue
Asper
that's in the Middle East his fault, no, he wasn't fucking president of the United States. If you're talking about what's going on right now, yeah, sure, he's in charge. You can put the blame on him, but the question is, what are we blaming him for? Are we blaming him for doing something or for issuing orders? I mean, that's what it comes down to. What actually you want to say is going on, or it's a complicated issue, because if it was easy, it would have been solved.
Is
Yeah.
the point? Yep.
With the Saudis, I don't think that it's wise to make heroes and villains out of politicians. They're there to either stabilize or empower themselves, or ideally their own country, and that generally does not align well with good and evil, if that makes sense. I mean, well, it aligns pretty well with evil, but not heroism. Usually, that's usually done by the guys on the ground. With the case of Saudi, I think this is chickens, like Memes says, coming home to roost from 40 years ago. Saudi is surrounded by hundreds of enemies of its own making. We've heard nothing about the absolute atrocities they committed in Yemen and other places before that. Yemen's just the most recent one I can remember, where they just go in. People go on about America's shock and awe tactics. The Saudis make that look like a bun fight. And this is now a case of Saudi, internally and externally, has its reach extends. What is it? Its reach is further than its grasp, or whatever the saying is. And they've made so many enemies. They have expanded so much. They have been so just despotic that they're now surrounded by people that absolutely can't stand them. The Americans are beginning to realize that they don't need to support Saudi anymore, and God knows what the Israelis are doing. They seem to just do what they do, and so Saudi is probably finding itself more and more on shaky ground, and this sort of stuff's going to continue, I think, from within and without.
I think those are our answers.
Yes, and gentlemen, we're rapidly approaching our final words while I'm trying to stay silent, but you can't tell because I've talked most of the time. I want to say something very quickly. Good to have you, Crumple Point. Good to have you, Memes. I think I need to talk to Common Sense Guy also. I haven't, but I'm just going to put this out there for him to hear with you, faithful 5 that are still here. Don't think we'll have another co-host. Why? The issue with our last one was a lack of respect for me to him. He deserved my respect. I've not been shy about that. He did, but it's a lack of it. Why? I think it's timing. I've known Common Sense for a while. He's been around and he's done things, and I'm a very suspicious, evil old ogre. I really am. I assume the worst out of everyone, and when I feel like the one thing is gone, and you know what? Our last co-host was the same. When he feels like one thing's gone one way, I mean, it's the way it is. There's no hard feelings, though. I can't stress that enough. I know I've said it before, but I gotta stress it one more time, Common Sense Guy, because I know Bollocks will be back on with us. He's just not a co-host, and I am the reason why. I am an insufferable asshole. I always will be. I'm suspicious. I don't. There's few people I pull into my inner circle. One human being on the internet right now is in my inner circle. It's Common Sense Guy. I'm not going to prod him, and I don't want him to say, please, Common Sense Guy, today don't say it. Will seem like I'm self-aggrandizing. I do believe he would say that if you were in my circle, I would be a good friend to have. But it doesn't really matter because in that circle is only one human being. So how could you even take his word? Because you'd be like, oh, yeah, he says that because Ogre likes him and they get along good. And that's what it comes down to, folks. I think as we go into our, because this is the end, boys, we're going to go into our last words here. And I do have a last word after this. I'm just trying to shift from everything. I'm sorry about all that we talked about, except for the metaphysical. And on Wednesdays, I believe out of respect for Magic Bollocks and out of deference for Lord Jensen Quinn, it will always be the metaphysical that we talk about on Wednesday. It will be the if, ands, or buts. It will be the what ifs. It will be the if it was this way kind of ideas. Those will be the things we talk about. So once again, if anyone ever wonders what happened, please talk to Magic Bollocks and myself. It's not as interesting as you might think. The Ogre got drunk and said a bunch of bad shit about a guy on air. The stream has been taken down, and anybody that knows me knows I don't do that often. But I was ashamed of what I said. I'm laughing now because I'm humiliated. I was ashamed of what I said. But, you know, once things happen, they happen. So I think I can speak for Common Sense. There will be no other co-hosts because I don't think anybody could put up with Common Sense Guy. And I don't believe that anyone else could put up with me. Common, you can laugh, but you know it. Give them time. You know that we're very similar, even though you hide it better than I do. I'll give you about 10 years. You'll be a worse curmudgeon than I am. So now, boys, let's do it this way. I love you, Crumple Point. I really do. In fact, I respect you a lot, but you're the fucking newbie here. So we're going to go this way. Crumple Point, memes of destruction, Common Sense Guy, and I'll wrap it up. Tell us what's on your heart. Please remember, it doesn't have to be about anything we spoke about today. In fact, a lot of times, just to prod you, it might be better if it wasn't. So anything that you'd like to say, this is your epitaph. This is your chance to give your final word. Let's go in that order.
Well, it's just great to speak to you all. I mean, like, I listen to you guys for pleasure, so it's really cool to be able to join in for a change and actually be the one to prod you guys into giving me a response. So that's fun. And thank you very much for having me on. I think this show is really something pretty special. The congregation is something pretty special. I'm in the chat most times that you guys are on, and what a fantastic bunch of oddballs we are. You know, like the eccentric in the best ways, and usually you don't find people that, you know, odd and different and unique without them also having crippling personality disorders and being absolutely insufferable. So this is really something special that the congregation and you guys are just, you know, willing to have these conversations and have such an out there show. And it's a pleasure to be part of it as a guest, and it's a pleasure to listen as always. Thank you for having me on, and, you know, keep considering all these weird and wonderful metaphysical questions. And thank you very much once again.
Love you, mate. But yeah, I'm just going to start and a very short word with, I believe it has begun, folks. Regardless of whatever happens, whether we went from Universe 7 to Universe 7A with the election of President Trump and the breaks of the Accord shortly thereafter, this is, if anything, proving to me that humanity has free will. Because what if it's something like this? We're programmed with all our biological functions. We're down to modern physics, which I actually did take in college for 1 week. I actually managed to do some of the homework, even though I was a business major and I took it as an elective. And I found out, oh, you're supposed to do all realms of classical physics. But yes, it's going to be slightly longer, maybe up to 5 minutes rather than a short word. I'm sorry. But regardless of that, what I'm saying is we're very complex creatures. Folks argue against it, and they're, from a physical standpoint, yeah, there are arguments against it. But what if it's something like we tend towards that direction, but we have the ability to do things? There's a big piece of chocolate cake in front of you. Yeah, you normally eat it. What happens if you decide at that point, you know what? 1,000 times I do this. This one time I won't. Why? I have no fucking idea, but I just won't. What if it's that change? And what happens if enough folks start actually doing things? Because we see things so often that we're like, I could have done this. I could have done that. And we live in the past. I think that's tearing us apart, folks. I believe if we can just live in the present, in the now, if we can actually believe that most other folks are good people, we can start to figure this out. We can start to tend in a more positive direction. And I bring this up, and I'm going to finish off with this, is that the other night, what was it? I believe his name is the Distributist. He had on a guy of the name of the Game Diviner. I guess he's been around for a couple of years. And he started saying things that I've thought of for a while. I've shared with some of the folks here. I pitch it as gamer theory. He literally says, well, what is going on with life? Well, life is the ability to accomplish a certain amount of goals in a set amount of time to do certain things. And he even says, like, dude, I think a lot of gamers, if they actually just realize the skills that they've developed and they actually applied them to IRL in some ways, I had some discussions with some other folks last night about it. I think we really can change the world and go in a positive direction. Memes out.
Yeah, well said, Memes. I will have to agree with you on most of the points that you've actually said, and this is not a case of me going, but I disagree. No, I agree. I agree with you on most of the premises that you make. It's a case of, yeah, in real life, we do have sets of goals and we do have limited time. The fact of thinking we may be able to become immortal or not immortal is a flip in my opinion. Because even if we do become immortal, as a species, it's a case of we're already overpopulated now. If we had people that were rich that were already going to be immortalized and immortal in general, then it's a case of where the fuck are we going to go? What country are we going to have to try and overtake and overthrow and try to make Africa work, for instance, and things like that? Maybe it would work in a good way, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. But it's a simple case in that instant that the planet will become overpopulated. It would become to the point we would have to look elsewhere to be able to form colonizations, to colonies. We would have the idea of imperialism again to try and find out where we need to go. And some people would say that's a good thing, some people would say that's a bad thing. But you have to remember the premise. It's the fatishness is what's led us to that point. It's the fact that our own sense of desire of living, of being immortal, of not dying, of not ending, is what would have driven us to that point. Now, some people will go, yeah, but that's just the way that humanity is. Humanity is not that. Humanity is not that at all. Humanity is the idea of being able to live through suffering.
Yes.
I believe a Rocky 4 or Rocky 5 film said it the absolute fucking best. It doesn't matter how hard you hit, because you're never going to get hit. Life is always... Fuck's sake, that fucked up.
Go on.
He said... Yeah, no, it's fine. Rocky's... he says that nobody's going to hit you hard. About how hard you can get hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep on moving forward.
Yeah.
It's a case... That's humanity. That's humanity's strength. It is the fact that we know that we are mortal, that we suffer, we die, we make things live on. It's the fact that we do know that we produce that. That's the reason why we fight for change, to make our life worth something. If we had the idea of being immortal, would anybody want to change anything? Would anybody want to do anything? Because it wouldn't matter, because the status quo wouldn't change.
Yes.
But the fact that we're mortal means that we want to make it better for ourselves. We want to make it better. We want to make an impact. And I think that's where we're going from at this moment in time. We're realizing again through collective evolution, and yes, I'm using David Icke's terminology on this point, and no, I don't believe in everything he says. But on that point of collective evolution, collective thoughts, if you keep on talking to people enough, people will get the idea and it will transmute from person to person. Yes. And that's the way that we have to make change, by talking to the person that's next to us, by talking to the person that's in India, that's in America, that's in Brazil, passing on our ideas and being able to back up our ideas That's how we make change, not by thinking that, oh, everything's to change. We need to find somebody to follow. Do it yourself. Make the change by talking to people. Make the change by standing for something. Because if a person doesn't have principles to stand by, then there's no reason in actually trying to say you have an opinion.
I'll tell you what, brother, there's a reason why we are what we are. So I think one of the reasons is because I know that you're done right now and you didn't even say so. There was a study done and they took some chickens and they put them in a large warehouse, unseen of the sun, all blocked off. And they terrorized the first generation of chickens by flying kites over. The chickens only reacted to the kites that looked like hawks, okay? And they flew them over. In the test, because it's modern, they should have killed some chickens, by the way, but they didn't because it was modern. And I guess that would be cruel, but it wouldn't be to me. I would really want to see when the hawk flew, they should have killed like 2 or 3 of them. They didn't. So this is as human as it can get. What they found out that was after they did that, and they waited 4 generations, that the chickens still knew. And so I don't want to go off into a long tangent because I do have a final word, but it was so wonderful, man. The only person I'm nervous about speaking after is the common sense guy. I used to work with the Britisher. He's a fucking buffoon. I mean, I was happy that he went before me because it was easy to upstage him. He's only got an accent. He really has no intellectual fortitude whatsoever. So listen, folks, as I said, and as I continue now, Yvette Fararka is going to prison. The Morning Kumite, I guess they're no more. The first show that I was ever invited on to have a Kumite style, whatever it is, Andy Worski. I didn't go on, and I didn't. I could have went on Andy Worski's show like 5 times. I just didn't. I listened to wiser heads, one of them being the Britisher. Because look, even a stop clock's right twice a day. It's correct, twice a day. I want to talk to you all for the next 5 minutes, probably not even that, probably 2 minutes, about what I started the whole deal today over. Justice and mercy. Justice is easy. Memes of destruction, Crumple Point, and my benevolent brother, common sense guy, could mete out justice to anyone we encountered easily. We could look at what they've done and we could juxtapose a sentence, couldn't we? And we could do it ruthlessly, heartlessly, without consideration of their family, friends, or loved ones. And it would be easy. Because justice is an easy thing. It's a thing that we do, that we deal with, that we expect. It's the thing that we desire. I was hurt, therefore I want justice. My mother was denigrated, therefore I want what about mercy? Has anyone considered mercy? Has anyone considered what they would want in the same shoes of that human being that they are screaming for justice against? Because justice can be against, but mercy is for. Please heed these words. I would like some more pregnant pauses, but I don't want to jelly you into oblivion by my mediocrity. Justice is something we all want. Mercy is the benevolent God of our age. Mercy is the thing we all desire, but would not gift to our enemy. Hear me well, people. Hear me well. Love Hezbollah. Love Al Qaeda. As a Jew, these Muslim names are hard for me to say in conjunction with love, but love Mujahideen. Love them. We've talked as men today and decided that torture is not the way. You give your enemy a drink of wine. You give your enemy a soft bed to lay their head upon in the turbulent night. You give your enemy the same deference that you would like yourself, or you are not human being and are not worthy of living on my fucking planet. Get the fuck off. I say this to myself more than anyone else. If you desire mercy, give it to the ones you hate the most. That's my final word, folks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming by. I got a song here I'm going to play for Tim Tarbox. Any of y'all that would like a voice chat afterward, I will be on my Discord in 15 minutes, and I'll be in a voice chat there just to bullshit. It'll be off the record. I would like to also issue an apology to Mad Dodge Productions. I don't think he's in the chat right now, but I did project a voice chat of theirs onto a stream. That has been taken down. I already said the things that I did in that stream, I'm not proud of. But you know what? In the end, Tim Tarbox, the world can suck my Jew cock. Thanks for being here, folks. Ogre out.
It was the 3rd of September. That day I'll always remember. Yes, I will. 'Cause that was the day that my daddy died. I never got a chance to see him. Never heard nothing but bad things about him. Mama, I'm depending on you. Tell me the truth. Mama just hung her head and said, son, Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone. Oh, Papa was a rolling stone, my son, yeah. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone. Hey, Mama, is it true what they say that Papa never worked a day in his life?
And Mama, some bad talk going around town saying that Papa had 3 outside children and another wife. And that ain't right.
Heard some talk about Papa doing some storefront preaching, talking about saving souls and all the time leeching, dealing in that and stealing in the name of the Lord. Mama just hung her head and said, Papa was a rolling stone, my son. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left was alone. Hey, Papa was a rolling stone. That coming, wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left was alone.
Hey, Mama, I heard Papa call himself a jack of all trades. borrow steel to pay his bills. Hey, mama, folks say Papa never was much on thinking. Spent most of his time chasing women and drinking. Mama, I'm depending on you to tell me the truth. Mama looked up with a tear in her eye and said, son, Papa was a rolling stone. Well, 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 well. Where were he left his head? What's his home? And when he died, all he left us was a long, 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 long. Papa was a rolling stone. Where he left his head? What's his home? And when he died, all he left us was a long. I said, yes, he was. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was a long. My daddy was. Yes, he was.
Thank you for being here, but the Motown rolls on for the next hour or so. Join me in my drunken debacle.
Darkest of night with the moon shining bright. There's a set going strong, a lot of things going on. The man of the hour has an air of great power. The dudes have envied him for so long. Oh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why. The only game you know is do or die. Hard to understand, but a hell of a man. This cat of the slum had a mind, wasn't dumb. But a weakness was shown, cause his hustle was wrong. His mind was his own, but the man lived alone. Ooh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why. The only game you know is do or die.
Yeah, baby.
The game he plays for kids. Hustling times in ghetto streets, trying to get over.
Yeah, that's one of those things. We actually want to talk. We
taking all that we can take. Gambling with the odds of fate.
There we go.
Beautiful. Trying to get over. Ooh, Superfly. The aim of his role was to move a lot of blow. Ask him his dream, what does it mean? He wouldn't know. Can't be like the rest, it's the most he'll confess. But the time's running out and there's no happiness. Ooh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why. The only game you know is do or die. Superfly.
The request line is open. Do you feel super fly like I do? Come on, man. Tell me how you feel. Here's one more from Curtis May. I'm your nigga in the alley.
I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I'm that nigga in the alley. I'm your doctor when you need, want some coke, have some weed. You know me, I'm your friend, your main boy, thick and thin. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. Ain't I clean, bad machine, super cool, super mean, feeling good for the man, super fly, here I stand, secret stash, heavy bread, baddest bitches in the bed. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. Solid life of crime. A man of odd circumstance, a victim of ghetto demands. Feed me money for stop, and I'll let you trip for a while. Insecure from the past, how long can a good thing last? Ooh, got to be mellow, y'all. Gotta get mellow now. Push a man, get mellow, y'all. Heavy mind, heavy side, making money all the time. My LD and just me for all junkies to see. Ghetto Prince is my thing, making love's how I swing. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. 2 bags, please, for a generous fee. Make your world what you want it to be. Got a woman I love desperately. Wanna give her something better than me. Been told I can't be nothing else. Just a hustler in spite of myself. I know I can make it. This life just don't make it. Lord, Lord, yeah. Got to get mellow now. Gotta be mellow, y'all. Got to get mellow now.
One video and the information is good, then I stick with it. I like it. Share
I'm
it.
your mama, I'm your
Well, I'm not-
daddy, I'm that nigga
I'm not
in the
looking to him
alley.
as
I'm
someone.
your
I'm not
doctor
looking
when
to
you
him
need, want some coke, have some weed. You know me, I'm your friend, your main boy, thick and thin. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. Pusher man. Lord,
And that's your pusher, man. I am your ogre, man. I would love some requests from this group that we have here. If you're here now, you must be here for the music. I've got a thing or two to say. You know, I will flex my pecs and be a jackass as I am wont to do. Ha ha. But until then, I really do look to you to give me your favorite Motown jams. So here's one of mine until I see one of yours.
I'm so in love with you. Whatever you want to do is all right with me. 'Cause you make me feel so brand new. I want to spend my life with you. Me say, sing, baby, since we've been together, ooh, loving you forever is what I need. Let me be the one you come running to. I'll never be untrue. Oh, baby, let's stay together, loving you weather, times are good and bad, happy or sad. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, the times are good and bad, happy or sad. Why somebody, why people break up? Oh, turn around and make up. I just came to see you never do that to me. Would you, baby? Spinning around you is all I see. Is what I want to do. We ought to stay together, loving you weather, times are good and bad, happy or sad. Come on, let's stay together, loving you weather.
Woo! Yeah, just like motherfucking dag-nab nature boy Ric Flair. Well, here's something different than what we've been listening to.
Growing up, it all seemed so one-sided. Opinions all provided, the future pre-decided, detached and subdivided in the mass production zone. Nowhere is the river or the misfits so alone. In the high school halls, in the shopping malls, conformity castles, in the basement bars, in the backs of cars, we conformity castles. And the escape might help us move the unattractive truth, but the suburbs have no charms to soothe the restless dream of you. Run like moths, we drift into the city, the timeless soul attraction, cruising for the action, lit up like a firefly, just to feel the living night. Where some will sell their dreams for small desires and lose the race to dance. Get caught in ticking traps and start to dream of somewhere to relax their restless flight. Somewhere out of the memory of lighted streets on quiet nights. In the high school halls, in the shopping malls, conformity castles, in the basement bars, in the backs of cars, we conformity castles. Escape my help to smooth the unattractive truth, but the suburbs have no charms to soothe the restless dream of you.
And now, from the famous one and only Sun Records label, this is Jerry Lee Lewis. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire!
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much of love drives a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. I let you love what I thought it was funny. You came along and woo, now honey,
in my mind. This love is fine. It's just great balls of fire. Kisses, baby. Feels good. Hold me, baby. Well, I want to love you like I love the should. You're fine, so kind. Got to tell this world that you're mine. I keep my nails down and I quit on my thumb. I'm real nervous, but it sure is fun. Come on, baby. It drives me crazy. It's just great balls of fire. Kiss me, baby. Feels good. Hold me, baby. Well, love you like I love the should. You're fine, so kind. Got to tell this world that you're mine. That you're mine. I quit on my thumb. Real nervous, but it sure is fun. Come on, baby. Drive me crazy. It's just great balls of fire.
Man, that was so dang good that we're going to do a threefer from Sun Records. And that was number one on this threefer. That was the one, the only great balls of fire, man. Jerry Lee Lewis, the Piano King. Here's one from Johnny Cash, man. Y'all better know this one. Get rhythm when you got the blues from Sun Records, baby. You gotta love it, motherfuckers. Get with the rhythm if you got the blues.
Hey, get a rhythm. When you get the blues, come on, get a rhythm. When you get the blues, get a rock and roll feeling in your bones, put taps on your toes and get gone, get a rhythm. When you get the blues, a little shoeshine boy, he never gets low down, but he's got the dirtiest job in town, bending low at the people's feet on the windy corner of the dirty street. Well, I asked him while he shined my shoes, how'd he keep from getting the blues? He grinned as he raised his little head, he popped his shoeshine rag, and then he said, get rhythm. When you get the blues, come on, get a rhythm. When you get the blues, a jumpy rhythm makes you feel so fine. It'll shake all your trouble from your worried mind. Get a rhythm. When you get the blues. Get rhythm. When you get the blues, come on, get a rhythm. When you get the blues, get a rock and roll feeling in your bones, put taps on your toes, get gone, get a rhythm. When you get the blues. Well, I sat down to listen to the shoeshine boy, and I thought I was gonna jump with joy. Slapped on the shoe polish left and right. He took his shoeshine rag and he held it tight. He stopped once to wipe the sweat away. I said, you mighty little boy to be a working that way. He said, I like it with a big wide grin. Kept on a popping and he said again, get rhythm. When you get the blues, come on, get rhythm. When you get the blues, it only costs a dime, just a nickel a shoe. It does $1 million worth of good for you. Get rhythm. When you get the blues.
And I've got something to say at the end of all this. I'm not going to play that one. I can hear it in my vocal earpiece, whatever. Look, I got something to say, and I'm going to play one last song from Johnny Cash, and it won't be Sunday morning. But this is the end of our 3 for our rock block of Sun Records. Thanks so much for the to go around. I'm going to go look back and see what everybody's been saying. Maybe I'll have a request. Who knows? I've got a little bit of time left in me. Headache creeping up on me. Life, work. I'm old. If you people want me to fuck off, press 1. If you want me to stay for another hour, press 2. Don't give me the old do what you want, you faggots. Just tell me what you want. Because I need your encouragement. I need for you to tell me that I'm okay. Because I'm old, people. I never needed it when I was young. But I need it now, folks. I need you to tell me if you think I'm worth the shit. Maybe you don't. That's cool. But I need to know it. You know, if I should just curl up and die, well, y'all be the ones to tell me. This is the last in our rock block from Sun Records. Thank you so much for the request. I will be looking for another like the other.
Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right for you. That's all right, Mama. Just any way you do, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right, Mama. Any way you do. Well, Mama, she done told me. Papa done told me too. Son, that gal you fooling with, she ain't no good to you, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right, Mama. Anyway, do. I'm leaving town, baby. I'm leaving town for sure. Well, then you won't be bothered with me hanging round your door, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right, my Mama. Anyway, do. I got a dee 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 dee. I need your loving. That's all right. That's all right, Mama. Anyway, do. Early one morning while making the round, I took a shot of cocaine and I shot my woman down. I went right home and I went to bed. I stuck at 1144 beneath my head. Got up next morning and I grabbed that gun. Took a shot of cocaine and away I run. Made a good run, but I run too slow. They overtook me down in Juarez, Mexico. Laid in the hot joints, taking the pill. In walked the sheriff from Jericho Hill. He said, Willie Lee, your name is not Jack Brown. You're the dirty hack that shot your woman down. And yes, my name is Willie Lee. If you got a warrant, just to read it to me. Shot her down because she made me slow. I thought I was her daddy, but she had 5 more. When I was arrested, I was dressed in black. They put me on a train and they took me back. Had no friend for to go my bail. They slapped my died carcass in that county jail. Early next morning, about 9:30, I spied a sheriff coming down the line. Up then he coughed as he cleared his throat. He said, come on, you dirty hack, into that district court. Into the courtroom my trial began, where I was handled by 12 honest men. Just before the jury started out, I saw that little judge commence to look about. In about 5 minutes, in walked a man, holding the verdict in his right hand. the verdict read in the first degree. I hollered, Lordy, Lordy, have mercy on me. The judge, he smiled as he picked up his pen. 99 years in the Folsom pen. 99 years underneath that ground. I can't forget the day I shut that bad bitch down. Come on, you gotta listen unto me. Lay off that whiskey and let that cocaine be.
These men have receptions, Matlock, A50632, and Bat Shelter, A39879. They have reception.
Yeah, bring me champagne when I'm thirsty. Bring me a reefer when I want to get high. Yeah, bring me champagne when I'm thirsty. Bring me a reefer when I want to get high. Well, you know when I'm lonely, bring my woman sit right down here by my side. Well, you know it shouldn't be no law. It's people that want to smoke a little dope. Well, you know it shouldn't be no law. The people that want to smoke a little dope. Well, you know it's good for your head. And it'll relax your body, don't you know? I lay my head down in my baby's breath. Well, you know, I lay down and be quiet. Trying to take my rest. Hug and kiss me. Said, mother, you're one man that I love the best. Well, I'm gonna get high.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. Stole many a man's soul of faith. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain. Made damn sure the pilot washed his hands and sealed his face. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Stuck around St. Petersburg when I saw it was a time for a change. Killed the Tsar and his ministers. Anastasia screamed to me. I rode a tank, held a generous rank when the blitzkrieg raged and the bodies stank. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. Oh yeah. What's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Oh yeah. I watch the glee while your kings and queens fought for 10 decades for the God they made. I shouted out, who killed the Kennedys? When after all, it was you and me. Let me please introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I lay traps for troubadours who get killed before they reach Bombay. Pleased to meet you. Hope you get my name. Oh yeah. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Ah yeah. Get down in it.
I've got to get some kind of credit for playing the Rolling Stones right after that was mentioned. So I guess, you know, what I'll do is I'll play some other tunes here. I'm looking for some really good suggestions. This stream will undoubtedly be taken down because, yeah, fuck it. Here it goes. This stream will be done after I play this. I know it's true. Here's Cream, Sunshine of Your Love.
It's getting near dawn. When lights close the tired eye, I'll soon be with you, my love. Give you my dawn surprise. I'll be with you, darling, soon. I'll be with you when the stars start falling. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going, in the sunshine of your love. I'm with you, my love, the light shining through on you. Yes, I'm with you, my love. It's the morning and just we two. I'll stay with you, darling, now. I'll stay with you till my seas are dried up. I've
to be where I'm going in the sunshine of your love. I'm with you, my love. The light shining through on you. Yes, I'm with you, my love. It's the morning and just we two. I'll stay with you, darling, now. I'll stay with you till my seas are dried up. I've been waiting so long. I've been waiting so long. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going in the sunshine of your love.
What an abrupt end, and I must say something. Thank you very much for being here. Now we will go to what some scallywags would call a deep cut. I call it 4 Sticks.
Just never leave. It would be gas. Describe what you see. Where you sit. Dreadful that boy. Oh, Angus. God, I'm a problem child. You see me, come on in there. Step aside. Or pay
this dream that I'm hitting my dad with a baseball bat, and he is screaming and crying for help. And maybe halfway through it has more to do with me killing him than it ever did protecting myself. And I believe that, yeah, Dad, maybe no one is perfect, but I believe that you were pushing your luck. It just sucks it played out like this. A terrible movie, you can tell none of the actors even give a fuck. You look good tonight, girlfriend. Can I sleep in your bed? And when I crawl out in the morning, can I stay inside your head? 'Cause you were high school, and I was just more like real life. And you were okay as a girlfriend. I was just more like his wife. I'll do the push-ups, I'll wear the makeup, I'll do whatever he wants all night. 'Cause you were okay as a girlfriend. I was just more like real life. A long time ago, my great-great-great-great-grandfather took something that did not belong to him. And that is why today I have an eagle in my veins. I am part Native American. And I am leaving as soon as I come. As soon as I come, you will probably forget my name. I hope I fall asleep at the wheel and crash my car. Or I could just stay here. 'Cause you look good tonight, girlfriend. Can I sleep in your bed? And when I crawl out in the morning, can I stay inside your head? 'Cause you were high school, and I was just more like real life. And you were okay as a girlfriend, but I was just more like his wife. I'll wear the makeup, I'll do the push-ups, I'll do whatever he wants all night. 'Cause you were okay as a girlfriend, and I was just more like real life, more like real life. More like real life, more like real life. You were high school, and I was just more like real life. And you were okay as a girlfriend. I was just more like his wife. And it is okay, I'll wear the makeup, I'll do whatever you want all night. 'Cause you were okay as a girlfriend, but I was just more like real life, more like real life.
This next song is about the beer that you find that someone else didn't drink. You know, you ever been at a party? You're at a party, right? And you see that there's a beer there. And all the beer's gone, but there's a beer there. And someone else did not drink it.
There's beer in coffee mugs, water bottles, and soda cups, and it's clear as the windows I came through that you are in one of those moods, and I am in one of them too, and it's hard to communicate anything. And I will remember that summer as the summer I was taking steroids. 'Cause you like a man with muscles, and I like you. still hear them laugh. There's beer and coffee mugs, water bottles, soda cups, and it's clear as the windows I came through. And I will remember that summer, as a summer I was taking steroids. You like a man with muscles, and I like you. But it's an aerial view from your house to my room, my room. It's an aerial view from your house to my room. I'm looking in your windows and I am trying not to stare. Hold on to hope, I'm sure it was never even there. 'Cause it's an aerial view from your house to my room.
And for those of you that are still here, yeah, I cut off the very tail end of that, but I'm trying to educate you. And so, to continue your education, this is the Moldy Peaches steak for chicken. Oh, I've got to change some shit over. I just pushed a button. I've been drinking. What the fuck you want? I have no kind of fucking producer or anybody that would just cut me off in the middle of it.
Mardi Gras came and went. All my money has been spent. How am I gonna pay the rent? Sitting on my ass. Who mistook the steak for chicken? Who am I gonna stick my dick in? We're not those kids. Sitting on the couch. In my former life I was a high roller. Brought my kids in a diamond stroller. Found my calling as a part-time bowler. Traded my wife for a new three-holer. Who mistook these baths for showers? Who fucked up that leaning tower? We're not those kids. Sitting on the couch. Oh, get on a Greyhound and ride away. Live on birthday cake each day. Tell your grandparents that they're gay. Steal their money and run away. 'Cause me and my friends are so smart. We invented this new kind of art. Postmodernists throwing darts, smoking crack and cutting crack. Who mistook the crap for genius? Who is gonna stroke my penis? We're not those kids. Sitting on the couch. Oh, people are shiny like a brand new book. But if you get a closer look, there's shit on every hand you shook. If you don't believe me, look at your hand. Who made all these things we're killing? Whose pussy hole needs filling? We're not those kids. Sitting on the couch. Who mistook the steak for chicken? Who am I gonna stick my dick in? We're not those kids. Sitting on the couch. Sitting on the couch. Sitting on the couch. Sitting on the couch.
Almost heaven. West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River.
The game, I should choose.
Almost heaven.
Well,
West
in
Virginia,
all fairness, you
Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country road, all my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky. Misty taste of moonshine, teardrops in my eyes. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country road, I hear her voice in the morning hours. She calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. Driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday, Lord, yesterday. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country road, take me home. Down country road, take me home. Down country road. You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again. Come, let me love you, let me give my life to you. Let me drown in your laughter, let me die in your arms. Let me lay down beside you, let me always be with you. Come, let me love you.
And those of you that are still here, come let me love you again. I hope to see you over on Mad Dodge Productions channel. And more than anything, more than the things I've told you on this stream, previous and subsequent streams, beyond the scope of my imagination, beyond the depths of my compassion for you and all that you love and hold dear. Forget all of that. I raise a glass to you and I ask only that you remember this. Be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. Be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge. You'll never be able to forget about it. Because constant viewers, my beloved friends, my cherished enemies, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, and everything you know will depart from you.